No highway tender. That's lovely, Kelly. Thank you. Mark, I know there's like one dangling thing that I kind of fell behind on my trip, and I don't think it's pressing enough that we need to.
So we will call this meeting to order for USD 348 and invite you to rise to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dr. Harvey is on call, so he may have to step out from time to time. He is present, but that's where he is. And at this time, if we could have an approval of the agenda, please.
So moved.
Second. Andy has moved and Susan has seconded to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor, please say aye. Raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. For that one, it will be 6-0. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Organizational items. Anything under parent, family, and community engagement opportunities and/or announcements from any of our administrators? It's okay. All right, you're hanging in there. Good. We do have one announcement from this end. I know many of you have been asking questions, and we had hoped that we would have heard a ruling on the Board of Tax Appeals suit that was filed against USD 348. We have not received that ruling yet, and so we're not going to say too much about that at this time, but in the spirit of transparency, so that everyone is informed based on what we can say for now. Essentially, when the district completed its preparations and passing of the budget in September, shortly after that, there was a complaint filed against the district by Mr. Mike Kennedy with a corroborating affidavit offered by Mrs. Carrie Barth. It's all public information. You can look it up for yourself. But as a part of that, the essence of the complaint had to do with the way the motion was structured, the oral motion. And so that complaint was submitted to the Board of Tax Appeals. The Board of Education went to Topeka on December 5th, all of whom testified under oath, which I think we were there about 5 hours in total. Again, we've not heard the results on that ruling. We won't say too much about it, other than that we had planned on sharing that information of how that will impact the district tonight. So we're not going to get too far in that discussion. Once that ruling has happened, of course, we want to be transparent with everyone else. A ruling against the district will not result in us having to republish the budget. But what it will result in is, again, a transparent conversation about cuts that we will have to potentially make that would be approximately $500,000. So we'll have that conversation if it's needed. Either way, the only thing I'll say is this: it's the holidays. We have a great community. It's always easy to win together, whether it's a basketball team or a Board of Education or a district. Easiest thing in the world is to be happy when you're winning together. When you're going through hard times or maybe a loss, it's hard to stay bought in as a team. So we'll say more about that later once we have the ruling, but what I want to assure every student, every community member and patron, every staff member is this: if the ruling does go against the district, we'll deal with it. We're gonna figure it out. We will get through whatever we need to get through together, and we will keep you informed as best we are able according to legal standards and doing things the right way. Either way will be fine, but there will be consequences that we will have to discuss when it is appropriate to discuss that, depending on how it goes. So wanted to make sure. That's about all I can say about that at this time, but we did say we would address it, so wanted to honor that. Thank you. Moving on to C, consent agenda. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Thank you. Tony has moved and Chris has seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 6-0. Recognition time. There's so much tonight. We are blessed with a lot of forms of excellence to celebrate this evening, as well as a lot of work on our agenda. So let's get to it. I know high school students in particular are still studying for finals, so we're going to keep it moving. All right, for the first form of recognition, we have the Northeast Kansas Music Educators Association District Choir Selections. So we had Ms. Jacobson, please feel free to shout out if I have any of this wrong. I believe between the elementary, the junior high, and the high school that we had 39 kids qualify for that. So big deal. They have to submit these auditions, then they're selected. They get to go and participate on a Saturday. They spend their day, not just their day doing it, but there's so much preparation that goes into the work of making sure those pieces are where they need to be. So it's awesome. We are going to recognize elementary, junior high, and high school. Also, I'm not going to reveal that, but also there were several of those district kids who then qualified for state recognitions. We'll leave that for another time. And also for these vocal kids, want to make sure, many of you are band kids also. We're not leaving out band. We're going to do that next semester. But there was so much vocal stuff. We're just doing vocal stuff tonight. So if you were in District Honor Choir, if you are an IC student, would you come up here, please? So that way we can all see who you are and recognize you. There's still time. Come on, Zara. Yep. So I'm going to read off every student's name. Sorry. We got to face this way. I always forget the whole camera thing. That way, if someone's watching at home, I'm going to list off everyone's name. But if you're here, obviously, you'll get your certificate too. Okay? So, Charles Baker, Abigail Bergen, and if someone's not here, all these extra certificates will go to Miss Jacobson, and we'll make sure you guys get those. Isla Ellis. Let's see. Oakley Schoendollar. Mariah Johnson. Thank you. There's Mr. Josh Stewart. Arwen Marsh. Zara Marsh. Kinsley Scott. Amara Thomas. Emily Brown. Amelia Lahosik, is that how you say it? Mm-hmm. Okay. So the Board of Education likes to recognize and celebrate excellence in all forms. So vocal students of the Intermediate Center, congratulations. Good job on all of your work. I know you guys, many of you have been not just doing school stuff, but you've been singing at nursing homes. You've been caroling around town. You've been singing at the community festival. So it's not just that you're accomplishing things. You guys have used your music to really give back to your community. And for all of that, we thank you and celebrate you. Congratulations. All right, you guys can take your seat if you would like. Now, for anyone who's here from the junior high, if you are in junior high, you can go ahead and come forward, band together so it's not weird. Again, same thing. So this is our junior high age group that went. And if you are not here to collect your certificate, we will get that to you. Blake Brittingham, Molly Cohorst, AC Curry. Wait a minute. AC, you're ACEY, aren't you? Okay, I'm going to give you your certificate, but I just noticed that. We'll fix it. It's ACEY.
Why'd you have to notice?
Sorry. But we're going to fix it. Transparency, Megan. That's fine.
Crystal clear.
Mallory Davis, Hunter Harding, Cheyenne Pruitt, Claire Watkins, Morgan Widener, and now we're on to 8th grade. James Baker, Madison Cooper, Kaysen Dick, you're welcome. Mariah Dublin, Mason Hoffman. Thank you, Amira Dublin.
I spelled it right, though.
She did. That was pronunciation fault on my part. Thank you. Josie Lemon, Miss Petra Morris, there you are here, and Boston Walters. Riley Webb also received a certificate. Kiara West, Layla Whaley, and I think that was the last one. So the USD 348 Board of Education supports and promotes excellence in all school activities. So again, I'll say the same thing to you that I said to those. Several of you have been also doing this, doing all sorts of community service with your voices. Several of you also participated in the fall musical. I know there's been, and that's about those times where those audition submissions are due. So lots of things that you all are doing. We're proud of you, and we want to congratulate you. Welcome. All right, and do we have any high school choir kids with us this evening? Yes, I know we have one. Hey, way to represent, Jolene. Okay, same, so in addition to this, Jillian, I'll say that before she starts, she's also a member of concert choir, very active in all of that. She also filled in last minute for soloist on the night of the winter concert last week. One of our singers was ill, and that wasn't like that was some easy row your boat moment. and Jillian stepped right in. You would have never known it wasn't planned that way. It takes a lot of composure to be able to do that. So since you're the one here, I get to say extra stuff about you. Okay, so we'll call the names again. Carly Armbruster, Greta Davis, Lizzie Goodwin, Zach Goodwin. I'm going to save you for last since you're here, okay? Michael Morris, Judah Olson, Parker Thurlow. That's a heck of a group of seniors right there. We're going to miss their voices next year, but we'll make sure they get their certificates. And Jillian McLaren, who is a junior at Baldwin High School. Congratulations. The USD 348 Board of Education supports and promotes excellence in all school activities. Jillian, congratulations to you, and thank you for representing your colleagues tonight by being here, because it is kind of like finals week and stuff. So, all right, let's give her a round of applause here. All right, next up, this one's really exciting too. This is for the 2024 Kansas Teacher of the Year submissions. If I could invite Casey Wright and Danielle Balsman up. So how that works is that there are submissions based at the elementary and the secondary level. Casey Wright is representing the elementary submission. Danielle Balsman is representing at the secondary level. And they are both Kansas Teacher of the Year nominees. This is, again, this is not some quick little, hey, I'll do this. There's so much involved just with the nomination and application process itself. Hours and hours of time. But also those nominations and submissions are based on the proof of the pudding, per se. And these two ladies are, I can't even tell you how many committees they serve on. They're not only work so hard in the classroom, but having the opportunity to serve on different committees with both of them, my gosh, they work very hard on behalf of students and also their colleagues. They're team players. They think big picture. And not to make the words about you both identical, because you're your own people with your own skill sets and gifts. But they truly devote themselves to the work that happens in this district and to their fellow colleagues and staff members. So I'm going to read these at the same time so that we can all clap for you as well. The Baldwin City Board of Education of USD 348 supports and promotes excellence in all school activities. On this day, December 19th, the Board of Education recognizes and congratulates both Danielle Balsman and Casey Wright as 2024 Kansas Teacher of the Year nominees. Congratulations and thank you. Okay, next, Baldwin High School Cheer Squad. They're waiting in the wings. Woohoo! Come on in, ladies. Thank you for being here with us tonight. Absolutely. And there is their coach, Miss Patty Lenning, who is an inspiration and a delight, who also is another staff member who just works her tail off. The things that are seen and unseen, all of it's appreciated. So the cheer team did something really remarkable yet again, and they placed at state. They placed third at their competition. Miss Patty, is there anything that you would like to add to that informationally before we start with the certificate presentation as a coach?
This team has been pretty impressive. We've had 5 out of 15 who've never even cheered before. We only have 5 juniors and seniors, and the rest are strong underclassmen. So from the beginning of the year, they've been quite impressive with their determination to learn and excel. First, there was a 2-point difference between first and third, which was a little more heartbreaking, I think, but they did phenomenal. They did the best performance that they have done, so we're very, very proud of them.
Absolutely.
Kate?
I've been a part of this team for 3 years now, and every single year we have either been state champs or gotten top 3, which I think is an amazing memory to share with this team and my coaches. And like Patty said, I'm really proud of all the girls who have never had any type of cheer experience before, and they came in and we got third. I think that's an amazing thing for all of them, but I'm proud of every single one of them.
Absolutely. And when you score in the top 3, you get names on stuff. So that's a pretty big deal, right? Yes. So congratulations. And you guys really have set the standard, because I don't remember repeat like this for cheer team. So you guys have really taken it to the next level. It's not a fluke. You guys have done it year after year, and I'm glad that you pointed that out, Kate. That's awesome. All right, well, I'm going to pass out certificates, and then we'll do the grand announcement all at the same time. Is Addison Allen here? I don't see her. Okay, we'll get that to her. Michaela Brown. Michaela. Riley Everly. Oh, can you take hers? Yeah. Awesome. Ebony Gerard.
Thank you.
I don't see Malin Harris. Okay. Anna Jardin. Sydney Kessinger. Adeline Model. Michaela Michael. Kenley Miller. Layla Mosin. Did I say Mosin right? Kate Nichols. Riley Peterson. Emma Rowland. There, let me wait. Jane Martin. Down here. Okay, that's everybody. So the Baldwin City Board of Education of USD 348 supports and promotes excellence in all school activities. On this day, December 19th, the Board of Education recognizes and congratulates our Baldwin High School cheer team. Congratulations, ladies, on your 3rd place finish. Can't wait to see what you do next year. Congratulations. Okay, we have another teacher recognition. So you saw all these kids up here for vocal music. I'd like to ask Katie Jacobson to come up now. So that way. So Miss Jacobson, in addition to all the stuff she just does all the time, she just wrapped up all of her winter programming. She also is, in addition to being a teacher at the Intermediate Center, she also teaches guitar at the high school. So she's in 2 different buildings and balances all that. In addition to that, she's also the director for the Baldwin High School musical. And since she has taken that over, I just want to note, because it's all of those reasons and more why you get an award like this, there has been a marked increase in student engagement for younger kiddos since Katie took over as the musical director. A lot more opportunities for kids at both the elementary and the junior high. We had several junior high students who participated in High School Musical this year. And that only happens if the teacher is willing to take it on, because you don't have to. It's a high school thing. You don't have to do that, but she does. Last year, if you came to Cinderella, there were like 10,424 elementary children as villagers and mice. And again, there's other ways you can do that. You can dial that in ways that you don't have
but she does it because she loves to provide opportunities for all of our kids. She cares for them deeply, and it reflects in then the music that they're able to create because of that. In addition to all of that stuff, she was also, she's been part of the Northeast Kansas Music Educators Association and has been in a leadership role for that organization for quite a while now, but you're done now after you've got.
Served my 2 years.
You've served your 2
Got
years.
one more at the state level.
Okay, yeah, just details. But at what's called KMEA, which all those kids were recognized for having participated earlier this month in December, Katie Jacobson was recognized as the music teacher of the year. It's such a big deal, I can't even talk about it. Sorry. And so we wanted to recognize you as well, because to receive music teacher of the year at that level is just a huge recognition when you factor in the fact that this lady and also dear friend, who is an old soul, is also in her 20s. You just don't see people in their 20s receiving music teacher of the year unless people are like, yeah, she's the real deal. It's a big, big deal. And so putting those fancy words aside, let me get a little more professional here. The Baldwin City Board of Education of USD 348 supports and promotes excellence in all school activities. So on this day, December 19th, the Board of Education recognizes and congratulates Katie Jacobson, the Northeast Kansas Music Educators Association Music Teacher of the Year. Okay, got a couple more. Bond study committee volunteers. So I'm going to come back to the table for this one. There's so many. If you are one of the people who have been serving in that capacity over the past several months, tonight is a really big night for our district. We will listen to a presentation that recaps months of work on the part of so many community members, staff members, and students. There were 3 different groups that have been meeting this past semester. One was an executive administrative team, which is comprised of our administrators and operations leaders. That was one committee. Committee number 2 was a staff and student visioning committee. They worked together for a while, generating ideas and giving feedback, etc. The third group was the community visioning committee. Those 3 groups worked independently, and then over the course of the semester, after 7, 8 meetings, can't remember, DLR they'll make sure they're going to recap all of that. But at the end, then all of those groups came together, and it is the results of those, all of those months of work that are going to be presented to the board tonight. But we were not able to get to the point of that without the countless hours of community volunteers. And so I did want to make sure, and we're going to list them all off. It's not like a formal certificate thing, because we don't know how it's going to turn out. We won't decide whether to advance an election or not until January. We're just listening to the results. But regardless of how that works out, it is important to take time to thank and recognize folks for their time. Time is the most precious commodity, and we're so lucky in this community that so many people are so generous with their time. So from the Staff and Student Visioning Committee, if you're here, wave, but otherwise I'm just going to read off the names. That committee consisted of Charlie Jewett, Ryan Pruitt, Mary Johnson, Linda Russell, Lisa Hodges, Jeff Wilkerson, Carol Wright, Heidi Johnston, Monica Gottsheimer, Jean Widener, Jill Boyle, Sarah Johnson, Melissa Alford, Daniel Balsman, Gail Dempsey, Nathan Kramer. Moving to the student side. Nathan Kramer, Briley Butel, Harper Schoendaler, Fisayo Afunja, Bailey Smith, Ethan Enright. To all of you who served on the Staff and Student Visioning Committee this entire fall semester, we say thank you. Our Community Committee, want to make sure and thank all these folks too. This committee represented different aspects of business and industry, various stakeholders throughout the community. So I want to make sure, retired teachers, etc., parents. Althea Hensley, Glenn Rodden, Mike Patrick, Cassidy Smart, Matt McClure, Doug Barth, Chad Dick, Kyle Patrick, Carolyn Groves,
Susan Butel, Melissa Stoltz, Jason Hefner, Danny Reichard, and Scott Lawrenson. I would ask the board to give them a round of applause too. On a personal note, I do want to thank fellow board members, at-large member Neufeld and Vice President Harvey. The three of us served as the subcommittee for this process, and were in attendance to observe and help facilitate information if needed at any of those meetings. Those are extra dates in addition to the dates we already do, so I definitely want to thank you all as well. All right, last but not least, well, Mr. Dodge was there too, and Megan helped with snacks, so I should thank them also. Sorry, didn't mean to gloss over that, pardon me. Okay, we are now at our educational program highlight portion of the agenda. We have student success teacher from the primary center. We're going to talk about that. Principal King is going to visit with us.
And I'm actually going to invite our student success teacher up. So Jackie Hostetler is the person that she's going to share some information about this position as well. So this is a new position to the district this year. Jackie started as one of our STAR teachers or parents teachers, which has also provided a wealth of information for her in connections with students and families, which has been invaluable to us. When Jackie started, her and I sat down and kind of talked about what we thought this role should look like. So we looked at the areas of math, of reading, and of SEL support, which she didn't step back from at all, jumped in and said yes. On her own then, stepped into looking at student data, really jumped into our FastBridge data and started meeting with teachers regularly, and then formulated some groups, set up a schedule, which she is constantly adjusting to make herself more accessible to more students. When it's possible within her schedule, she steps into our care meetings. She'll come to IEP meetings when she can provide that information. So on the family side too, she has just been, I can't even speak volumes of how much help and support she's offered to them. Because she's had connections with some of these families through STAR, there's a little bit of ease that comes too when we're talking about some difficult conversations that can be hard for anybody to hear if you're not having success with something. So I think she helps put families at ease with that too. I'm going to let her share a little bit. I think she has both ways when we see success and when we're looking for different avenues and what she's going to share on that. So I'm going to turn it over to Jackie and let her share a little bit.
Hi, thank you. I'm Jackie Hostetler. And I just wanted to first thank the board for supporting the position. Right now, it is a grant-funded position, but there are district resources that go towards supporting the program. And there's one in each building. And of course, we have one at the primary center. So I do thank you on behalf of the staff and students in our building for those supporting resources, because it's been a positive addition to our staff. And when Mrs. King approached me about speaking tonight, I thought, gosh, what can I say? I could show data, but you guys probably see a lot of that. And it just happened to coincide with our second round of FastBridge testing that we are just finishing up or have finished up. So I thought I have some great anecdotal notes that I can share, little anecdotal stories I can share. So I'm going to call this story A Tale of Two Kindergartners. So after our first round of FastBridge testing in the fall, a kindergarten teacher came to me and she said, I have a student that's struggling, not quite meeting the benchmark, not on an IEP. Can you help? I said, sure. I had another kindergarten teacher that came to me. She said, I have a kindergarten student that's struggling, not quite meeting the benchmark, not on an IEP. Can you help? I said, sure. So these kindergarten students I started taking for 15 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes in the afternoon. As Mrs. King alluded to, once you sort of get into it, you might feel you kind of change your groups around a little bit to see that you're meeting the needs that need to be met. So this has continued through for the first semester, and we just are now getting back our winter FastBridge data scores. Kindergartner number 1. I just had a wonderful talk with that kindergarten teacher. He's meeting his, he's actually above where we need him to be. and she said just that little bump in the morning and that little bump in the afternoon helped. And when we don't need to go to care team and we don't need to go to, we are not going to proceed with the IEP process. He's doing great. He's doing exactly where he needs to be. So that's a celebration and just exactly what this position was created for. So then I had a conversation with another kindergarten teacher about our other kindergartner, and he is not meeting the benchmark. Still needing lots of challenges in several areas. We're going to proceed with care team. We're likely to lead to the IEP process, and that's okay. This role is helping that child in a different way because maybe we didn't see the gains that we had hoped, but we do know what worked for him. We know what didn't work for him. We have this data in place. As we move forward, we have information to present to parents and everyone else on the team. We can say we've tried this. This worked. This didn't work. A lot of that work is already done, and that's because of this role and because of this position. So it's just been and then so I'm talking about these two children who are on either end of the spectrum, but then there's many that fall right in between all of that, and not just kindergarten. Obviously, our building is pre-K through 2, so I do have the opportunity to help with all of those grades, and it's just been such a neat professional experience for me, and I do hope that the children and the staff are also benefiting from it as well. And again, just thank you so much.
And to add on to that, like she does the reading. We don't have a math specialist, so it's nice to have her help in the math component too, where we can get some that tier 3 intervention type with our math students that need that support. I also just have to give you a thank you. Sometimes you're in meetings and you talk and you think, do people really hear you? She had, I think it was the BEF grant, am I correct? Mm-hmm. And approached me. She's like, you keep talking about multisensory. And has decided to take that grant and is looking into multisensory approaches to.
That was the PT. I think that was the
with PTO one. Uh-huh. But she's going to take that money and kind of utilize it in multisensory. So she's also trying to build that piece to help her support. So I appreciate the listening and building those skills and kind of showing some of our staff members as well. So anyhow, thank you, Jackie.
Yes, I'm listening. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Celebrating USD 348 student voices. Just wanted to share that we received a lovely thank you card from all the band students, if you would like to, was thanking us for approving their field trip, their group bonding activity, the zip lining adventure. And so there's a nice thank you card here if anyone would like to see that. And now we get to do fun stuff. Yeah. That's fun too, but this is really fun. Okay, at this time we are going to recognize the Baldwin Built Employee of the Month.
All right.
Yep.
Typically, this would be one where I'd read the descriptions or the nominations about the individual, and it would be kind of a surprise. But this individual has created such a positive impact on their building that I'm not going to be able to keep that covert. So at this time, I would like to have Lois Messias please come up as our December Employee of the Month. The nominations here, it's quite lengthy, but I want to make sure that I read these because these are great. It says, Lois has done a tremendous job in her first couple of months within the library. She has looked to remove books and add new ones that are relevant to the curriculum and interest. She has held at least 2 different student and staff contests to create more traffic in the library. She's holding kids accountable that are using the library or their own aids. Overall, she's turned the library into an actual resource and a destination for students, staff, instead of a room with old books. When asking for a quote, the nomination said this. Ms. Lois has not only raised the expectations for our library and media center, but you can tell that she cares about her position and the kids that use the library and media center. She has taken a tremendous project and is doing a great job. So with that, please help me congratulate our December Baldwin Bill Employee of the Month. So when we call the winners and let them know that they're going to get to access this Well, we asked what sort of wrestling move they are going to apply on last month's winner. So I recommended the sleeper hold, but she decided not to go with that. So Mr. Curry, you're off the hook tonight. So, but congratulations. So there you go. And this gets posted in a really good place for the high school kids.
Ms. Lois, to add to that, I want to make sure you know the Baldwin Education Foundation has partnered with us for this, and so that every employee of the month also receives a $50 award to go along with the fabulous belt that you get to.
Hang on for a
Yes,
while.
yes.
Thank you.
And thank you. Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right. Now it is time for public comment. Okay. Okay, perfect. All right, we have 2 people signed up for public comment. Thank you for that. Our public comment policy is an opportunity for the board to listen. In accordance with district policy BCBI, this is the agenda time during the meeting when an individual may address the board. The board welcomes up to 10 patrons to speak. Each of the patrons will have the opportunity to speak for 3 minutes. Those wishing to make public comment are asked to sign up on the night of the meeting prior to 7 p.m. And with the exception of not discussing specific matters related to identifying students or staff by name due to confidentiality considerations, there are no restrictions regarding the subject matter the patron wishes to share with the board. Also, if a delegation of persons comes to discuss a single issue, every effort should be made to avoid redundancy by each person stating only new facts or new perceptions. Board members are not to respond during this time. Again, this is the time established in the meeting for the board members to prioritize listening to the public. So at this time, I would invite Mike Kennedy to speak. Topic of public comment is potential bond issue.
Thank you for your time. And for everybody behind me in the public, know that I come to these meetings to speak because it's my desire to make sure that our Board of Education is transparent and represents themselves with integrity. So with that in mind, at the November 21st, 2022 USD 348 board meeting, I did present to the board a concern of a potential conflict of interest with Piper Sandler. And let me go through some of the concerns I have. On September 14th this year, the USD 348 conducted a public hearing to discuss tax rates and the 2022-23 budget. The entire 3.5-hour meetings on YouTube, who anybody wants to watch. At the public hearing, the public questioned why the proposed bond and interest budget for the year was $3,500,000, exceeding their own published bond and interest obligations of $2,500,000. The excess proposed budget would increase property taxes to patrons by approximately $330,000 over what's needed to fulfill their obligations. These excess rates, at a time when many families are struggling, are being used by USD 348 to promote to the public a stronger financial position by which to consider putting a new bond issue on the ballot in 2023. During the hearing, both the public and members of the board asked the unelected member at the table tonight about lowering the bond and interest budget. At 2 hours and 24 minutes in the hearing, this person said, "I'm saying I don't recommend changing the bond and interest because that's not a conversation we prepped for with Dustin Avey as our financial advisor for the district." Dustin Avey is a managing director at Piper Sandler. Piper Sandler is a major financing firm engaged with many municipalities and school districts in the state for placements of new bond issues. Piper Sandler financially benefits from the placement of these bonds. At the October 17th board meeting, Dustin Avey of Piper Sandler did present information related to the bond issue and the district's financial status after this proposed budget was passed and claimed we were in good financial condition. Within his presentation is also a disclaimer that Piper Sandler is providing the information contained herein for discussion purposes only in anticipation of being engaged to serve as underwriter or placement agent in a future transaction and not as a financial advisor. The idea that a representative for a finance firm that stands to gain from a multi-million-dollar new bond issue in the future is being used by USD 348 as a financial advisor, in their own words, for setting current year tax policy on the bond and interest budget should be very troubling to anyone listening to this tonight. Why is USD 348 basing its justification for excess taxes on the advice from a finance firm that stands to benefit from these excess taxes? The public deserves to know this. Furthermore, in submitting their proposed budget to KDSC on Form USDB,
3 minutes,
thank you.
All right, I'll invite forward Molly Hill, and her topic of public comment is FFA. Welcome, Molly.
Hi.
You can start anytime.
You are good to go.
There are more than 220 FFA programs across Kansas with over 9,700 members. You know what? Baldwin isn't one of them. All of the surrounding towns of Baldwin have a program, so why doesn't Baldwin? My mission today is to change that. My name is Molly Hill, and I'm in 7th grade at Baldwin Junior High School. I'm a 5-year member of the Lone Star 4-H Club, as well as the Kansas and National Junior Angus Association. I most recently was chosen to be one of 16 kids in the whole United States to be an American Royal Advocate. Within this program, I have continued to learn that the ag industry is more than just being a farmer. FFA stands for Future Farmers of America. It is an agriculture education program that has been around since 1928. FFA welcomes members who want to be teachers, doctors, scientists, business owners, and more. FFA is committed to provide a pathway to achievement in premier leadership, personal growth, and career success through agriculture education. When I came to this school district last year, I almost didn't come because there was no FFA program. But I told myself that I was going to try my best to start one because it is very important to me, and I have found that it is very important to many others in the school district. I personally know kids that have left the Baldwin School District to go to other schools because Baldwin didn't have an FFA program. When Baldwin offers FFA, students can choose classes in many pathways, including ag science, animal science, plant science, biotechnology, as well as power structure and tech systems, to name a few. High school students involved in CTE are more engaged in the classroom, perform at higher levels, and graduate at higher rates. I know that starting a program like this will take a while, but there are things you could offer in the meantime, like transporting kids to Wellsville to be involved in their program. Another helpful tool will be to contact the Kansas FFA advisor and agriculture consultant, Guy Shoulders. Part of his job is to help with this process. I recently contacted him, and he was excited to know that this was a new possibility and sent me a few documents that were designed to help navigate the process of starting a program. Some of the documents are a few years old, so the numbers of programs and members will be off some. I took the liberty to print them out for you and will give you each one of you a copy. I look forward to hearing from you in the future with a task I can help with to ensure this program can be a reality to the youth in Baldwin. Career and technical education is a vital part of ensuring our success as adults, and I hope you all can agree with me that starting this program would benefit our community.
Thank you, Molly. All right. That concludes our public comment portion, and...
Did you want to hand those, you mentioned you had some information
Oh,
from the
yes,
board.
yes, thank you.
Make sure that you have those.
Thank you. This is incredible. Molly, we will read this. Thank you very much. All right. Now we'll move on to the financial report. None at this time, so moving on to administrative reports. Up first is English Language Arts Materials Adoption Update.
So actually, TROP has been working with our primary center staff and our intermediate center staff on updating our ELA materials. They've been spending a great deal of time looking at resources, having meetings, going to Greenbush events, trying to look at what would be the next tool for us to utilize. And with this, there's also the research of the science of reading that falls in to make sure that we are helping students that struggle, in particular with that whole line of decoding as it comes to becoming effective readers. So at this time, I'm going to stop my part and let Ashley take her notes.
maybe. I think I'm good. Okay. Yay. All right. Like Mr. Dodge said, I'm going to give you just a quick update on our ELA adoption for elementary. At the beginning of the year, we went ahead and made an ELA committee, a representative from each grade level, an interventionist, and a SPED teacher. Just want to give them a big shout out, thank you. They put in a lot of hard work, a lot of time out of their classrooms. So we have Sybil Coates, Sarah Harris, Stephanie Ramirez, Bailey Hughes, Justin Hoffman, Allison Nice, Kathy Maxon, and Mackenzie Austin. So we're not done. They have a lot left to do, but they've done a lot of hard work. Here's our quick timeline. This is kind of a long process. It'll take us 5 months in total. We started in October with 6 different materials based off of ed reports. We got together and used the Reading League curriculum evaluation tool to kind of evaluate each curriculum that we had, and we narrowed it down to our top 3. In November, the committee went to Greenbush, Vendor Fair, and Lawrence. All 3 of the vendors were there. We got to see the material, ask questions, just get a good look into those programs. Earlier this month, we got together, and each of those companies did a product presentation for us. It was about an hour long. Got a good look into what they offer, the resources, asked lots of questions. It was an individual, just us and them. And after that meeting, we went ahead and narrowed it down to our top 2 that I'm going to share tonight. Next month, we're on the January 4th PD day. The reps will get with their grade levels and get their input of these top 2. Hopefully in February, we have a material to, we select one and can present it to you and get purchase approval by March is kind of our rough timeline. We have 2 great, strong choices for ELA curriculum. Our first is, I'm just going to kind of highlight what the teachers liked about these 2 programs. We have My View by Savas. It is grounded in the science of reading research, which is something that's really important to us. This curriculum also has real-world projects integrated. The science and social studies themes are within the curriculum also. It has texts that really build that student knowledge. It has whole and small group instruction, and it also integrates social and emotional learning in that program. So that's one of the ones we're looking at. The second one is CKLA by Amplify. It's also science of reading research. It has diverse content knowledge in history, science, literature, and the arts. It has a strong foundational skills, deep content. It has a lot of digital materials for students and extensive teacher support. So hopefully by February, we have narrowed that down and we can present the best choice to you. Any questions? All right, thank you.
I just wanted to just add, going through these material processes, it takes time, and the steps that they're going through to really give this some good thought and do the research behind it. I'm proud of Ashley and the group in terms of what they've done, and I'm excited to see where this leads.
The committee's done a lot of hard work. They've really dug into that curriculum, and yeah, they are. So,
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Junior high handbook duty position change. Hi, Mr. Bland.
Hello. All right. Might be one of your quickest ones tonight. We need to make a pretty simple change in our handbook. Currently, it's listed as a PAC Commons area supervision spot, and we'd like to change that officially to being the crosswalk in front of the school. I reached out to Chief Patrick. He was all on board with it. I had our school resource officer get together with our teachers who are going to work at the crosswalk, talk about some basic safety things, ordered them a vest, got a stop sign. I think we've got all of our bases covered. And, we've been doing it for the last week or so, but I'd like to officially have permission to make that change since it is in our handbook.
We'll entertain a motion to approve that handbook change as Mr. Bland has presented it.
Someone like to do that? I can do it. I move we approve, sorry, I basically did it. Let me do it officially. I move that we approve the junior high handbook duty position change as presented to us by Principal Grant.
And I will second that.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries 7-0.
Everything was that easy unanimously. Thank you.
Amen. KSB policy updates.
All right, well, I'm sorry to disappoint. We don't have 30 policies this time. It's smaller than that. It's about 9. The policies that they recommended this time around, there are 2 policies that we don't currently have. So there's no recommendation on my end to approve those. The remaining ones that are there are ones that I would recommend adopting. Like we've done in the past, what I want to do is give you an opportunity to read through those policy changes and come back next month with any questions you might have and proceed there. I would say there are 3 policies that have some significant language changes as it relates to complaints that exist. It provides timelines. I think it's a good thing. It provides timelines. It provides articulated dates that are required and the steps that the district would take in relation to the complaints that are there. So I would definitely think those are good. And there's a couple that are there that are just, it puts us in compliance with recently adopted law. So, but when we come back next month, we can discuss those in more detail if you want.
Great. Thank you. No operations update at this time, so we'll move on to old business for the 23-24 district calendar. So
a couple of months ago, as we were going through some meetings or a conversation with the Teachers Association, Mr. Curran, he asked what would likelihood would be to reinstitute spring conferences at the elementary level. And I think it's a great idea. And so the conversation is going back to the buildings. What can we do so that we can get those parent-teacher conferences in the spring? Parent-teacher conferences are essential for the home-to-school connection. It's essential so that we do those at the right time so that we can provide a trajectory for improvement each semester. So I think this would be something good. What it does is within the calendar there, it puts the elementary conference schedule on the same schedule as the junior high and the high school. We have double, triple, quadruple checked the hours and in that to make sure that we are compliant there and we are good at this point. So what I would ask is that we have an approval of this adjustment to the 23-24 calendar.
It looks like those are in February. Those 3 days.
Yep.
You got them on Valentine's Day. Teacher spouse.
Yes. Yes.
That's fine.
Plus side is that's like a branding opportunity for PTO. We love our teachers. Like that just doesn't sound from the event planning standpoint.
That's a positive.
That doesn't spin it for me.
That doesn't work for you? So you need a motion to approve
I need
that
a
change.
motion.
If we approve the change, the calendar change, as Mr. Dodge stated.
Chris has moved, or excuse me, Susan has moved and Chris has seconded to approve the district calendar change for 23-24 regarding the spring conferences as presented. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Okay, coming back for old business, environmental club funding request. This came before the board last month, and we had some questions about, well, there were several questions, one of which was obviously the financial part and what part of the food services line item. So Nate, I'll let you, I know you've sent emails about that, but just so you can present that again and follow up and what our options are for that.
Yeah, so as a group proposed last month, looking for potentially establishing a recycling program at the high school. So the question again, as Kelly stated, was for food service. So we can expend indirect costs up to 14.35% of that. The rest would come out of general fund. So, you know, the question from the group that they've already raised funds to cover this upcoming semester. So I guess the question for the proposed to the board is, do we, what do we have to consider with that? One being that it's only the high school. What is, let me kind of go through my notes here. For, you know, again, they've raised the funds to go through that. Do we look at, you know, at the end of the second semester, what participation through the recycling program, how did it go? Where was the usage mainly at? Was it just food service or was it within the entire building? So did you guys have any other questions on the information that I sent to you in the emails this last week?
Just as far as location, where will this proposed dumpster be at? Is it close to the junior high so it can be used for those buildings?
It could potentially be, yeah, for sure. I'm not sure the size of the dumpster or logistics for that would be. I know that was just kind of the initial idea, would the board consider that as an option? For budgeting standpoint, obviously we haven't budgeted for this year, but we sure can look into budgeting for the next fiscal year if that's something that the board does approve. So again, the rough estimate cost for just the one building is about $2,000. Yeah.
So more details about the actual, I guess, physical component to this, but will this be contained or locked to where it cannot be accessed after hours or weekends or by animals or anything else?
Yeah, I have not seen the container. I would be happy to follow up and give a response to the board and look into that for you for sure. I haven't seen the physical container yet.
One of the locations, and I say this is just more of a brainstorming because that's a concern that I have. I don't want it to be a dumping ground for loose items. It needs to be direct for the high school recycling. Do we have the capacity to store it within our transportation fencing that's there? Because that gets locked up. Do we have the space? Would it logistically or logically fit there? That would allow it to be open during the day so that items could be put there. But then in the evening, to your point, that it's secure. That's one of the locations that I had in mind. If not, what options do we have to make sure that gets preserved?
And also just logistics. Are we having the students themselves, run the recycling to the bins? How does that look internally for staff as well? So there's just another thing to consider as well.
Okay. Well, they have self-funded up through June. If you remember, their plan that they brought was to try to start in January. I don't think we're in a position. I was hoping we were going to get some kind of recommendation. So since we don't have that, can we make sure those conversations happen between their sponsor and, probably operations? They have all the stuff laid out here, but that's very different than how it actually looks, and we understand that. But if they have something, with the private people they've already secured in their donations, monthly costs from January through June. They have all 990 of that already raised. So I would want to make sure that we let them know so they have not, just because they have raised the funds for that, I don't want to put them in a planning bind. If they've thought more of that out and we just haven't connected where we would want to connect for the logistical aspect, because I don't think any of us up here want it to turn into some sort of free-for-all. And also, if we authorize do anything, that doesn't mean it's authorized in perpetuity. I would only be comfortable saying like a year and let's see how it goes.
Sure.
Because, the stewardship aspect of what it does to our grounds is something that we need to keep our eye on. So am I hearing it right that we don't really have necessarily a plan for any of that at this time?
We don't.
Okay. That would be hard for me to make a decision, even though I would want to. I definitely want to give the kids an answer because I feel like they've worked really hard to bring all this information to us. But
we'll have that plan in January.
Yeah, and we also, we're going to be meeting a lot in January, so there's the upside. Yeah. So let's try to work on that just so that we know what's feasible, what's not feasible in terms of location, all those things. I don't want to just blindly go ahead and then we've got crap.
And to that point, for the board to be comfortable with that, we want to make sure that happens. So location, security, and securities. Are there any other?
The email we received from a patron to, I don't know if you know, the board received it and Mr. Birmingham received it. So hopefully that could be shared and some of the concerns addressed within that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like the group who spoke, the environmental group, have really are in tune with any of those concerns that came up. So I trust them wholeheartedly. But just in the spirit of transparency, as Kelly would say, maybe share that with them also.
Yep, absolutely.
because students also phase out. And so, you know, that's, you know, conversation with our sponsor, which I know she would be sure to have, but I think I would be more comfortable going forward. I have no problem supporting it for a year and seeing how it goes, but I think we need to lock in those other things first and make sure.
Absolutely.
Is everybody else in agreement with that? Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Okay, we are now at item number 3. This is under old business because we've been doing this for a while now. This is the bond exploration update. We have Kevin and Megan here from DLR. We have Josh here from Lloyd Builders and sorry?
Clayton Kelly.
Yes, and Clayton Kelly here from Piper Sandler. So we have representatives from each entity, from the construction manager to the architectural firm, to then those financing questions, and all of those pieces are important. So I'd like to take this opportunity to invite you all up. And if there's anything you need to give to Megan, that you've already got it. So now we get to listen to the presentation of the months of work. This, buy them a little bit of time here. Again, this process really kind of started in a way last spring when Dustin came to us and said, hey, you all have an opportunity here. At that point, we were working through the final phases of our strategic plan. In all the survey data that was submitted as part of that 18-month strategic plan process, a lot of themes kept coming up over and over again for our facilities about things we needed to do. So coupled with the voices of our community members saying, hey, this is what we think we need, this is the direction we think we need to go, we finished our strategic plan process, approved that in the summer, and then decided, hey, we're going to study this bond possibility. To make clear in terms of process, no decision will be made tonight. DLR is going to be presenting the results, kind of those overall thematic results that came out of this process. And then in early January, depending on how our conversation goes, I'll circle back to that later. But essentially then in early January, we would, if the board wanted to, we would call a special meeting to then say, okay, we're going to make a decision, yay or nay, as to whether to advance this study to a public election. The board does not vote on whether or not to go forward with a bond. The board can only vote to advance it to a public election. So just want to be clear on the front end, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to you all. Board will have an opportunity to discuss, ask questions, and then talk about other process things at the end.
Here's what it's a little thing. So either you get a pointer or you get your secret other
multi. It's like Mary Poppins's bag, you know, where the more stuff just keeps coming out. It's all the stuff you need.
I was completed earlier. Let's see. It works for everybody at this point. Yeah. So that way I know.
Sorry for the delay. So as Kelly had mentioned, Kevin and I had been doing the visioning sessions since September. We're going to just walk you through the process just really quick so that you have an understanding of how we came to where we are today. The community and the staff and the students had a huge part in what we're going to show you today. And so I did see some familiar faces. If you were part of the visioning teams, can you stand up? Raise your hand so we can see you. And then also, if you want to elaborate on anything that we're talking about, please feel free to come up and share your experience.
We might ask.
Yeah. So you might see some familiar faces up here. This is part, just kind of a collage of our planning process. Just so everyone is aware, the planning team consists of teachers, students, and the community. And initially when we started, we had teachers and students in the community in separate groups, and then we brought them together. And then we do have the district executive team as the planning committee. So here is the process that we went through. You can see that we started the planning process in September, but DLR actually started back in July, I believe, where we walked all of the facilities. We met with all of the principals. We met with the maintenance staff to see what condition the buildings were in. And actually, the buildings are in excellent condition, better than what we've seen in most school districts. So you can see where we're ending right now. We are in the refine phase, and so it's to finalize and present a solution to the Board of Education, which is what we're doing tonight. And then we really want to emphasize that DLR was facilitating these conversations and facilitating these meetings and helping the community and the teachers to navigate the process and to figure out what was important, what does the district need. And here's just talking about the facility assessments that we had done. And also we looked at each capacity of the existing schools. So one of the first things we did as a group was determine guiding principles. And these were all items that the groups felt were important, and we used kind of as guardrails as, hey, if we make a decision, is that decision aligning with these guiding principles? And we've highlighted the guiding principles that have, or that do align with the strategic plan. I'll read a couple of them. So providing a variety of spaces to be successful with multiple learning opportunities that aligns with hands-on academically challenging experiences and activities, to engage learning and teaching, to encourage and evaluate innovative and progressive instructional practices. So you can see how these two different principles really kind of bind together. We did do surveys. We did surveys both within the visioning groups and in the community. A couple of questions we asked were, what do you think of when you think of the USD 348 facilities? And so we had these kind of word blasts that came through. So another question was rank project locations in order of importance for improvements. The blue is the visioning group results, and the gray is the community survey. And you can see that they very much aligned. So the high school came in as the #1 priority. The junior high came in as the second. And then we asked the community and the visioning team to rank project type in order of importance for improvement. So kind of what category would that be? An educational program came in first, and safety and security came in second. So all of that information we took, we gathered, and then that led us to what we're going to show you here in a little bit. Is there anything that any of the visioning group wants to touch on or elaborate on?
I'll share a little bit. They asked me to speak, so I came somewhat prepared to say a few things, so I might pop up a couple times.
My name is Melissa Stoltz. I was part of the Community Visioning Committee. It was really exciting for me to be a part of it. I think, like many people in this community, I got to wear 2 different hats while I sat on it. I sit on the Baldwin City Recreation Board, and then I'm also a parent. I have 3 students, one in 3 of the 4 schools this year. So it was really exciting for me to be a part of the committee. It was interesting to start out just as the community, where we were with the individuals that were just from the community, and then have the teachers join, and then have the students join as well. So we really got to hear the different thoughts of each of the committees as we went through this process. And what I learned was that we were all very aligned. We all, kind of had the same thoughts as we went through this. Education was very important to all of us. Safety was very important to all of us. And then the facilities was also very important as well.
Thanks, Melissa.
I want to add on. Daniel wants to add on. Mrs. Goldsmith.
I need to stand close enough to the mic. Yes. From the teacher side of it, just from the get-go, it was nice to kind of see an idea of some of the improvements that we can make in our buildings to meet student needs. It was especially nice. One of the students that we had in our committee is someone that I think is involved heavily in our VOTEC, or what we would say with our Mr. Harmon out in our shop, and to physically see through the eyes of a student how they picture our building, especially when they get to visit other facilities and know what other schools might have and what we do not. So it's very eye-opening. Not that we don't see it, but it's nice to hear it from different viewpoints, the needs that our district, that we hope we can bring in so that we can meet student needs and take them further and allow them to blossom more than what we can offer them right now. It was also glorious to know, too, in comparing to other buildings, how many amazing educators and community members we have, or people supporting our district, even though maybe our buildings aren't quite as up to grade as our fellow communities, like between Ottawa and Eudora and even Wellsville making upgrades, where we're at in comparison, and knowing that we have such amazing people willing to make our district better, even though we haven't quite hit that standard, but hopefully we can with this presentation.
So the next thing, as we did go through this process, and half of the beginning process is a little bit about, I know it was boring for everybody at the beginning, because it's a little bit about education, it's a little bit about talking about all the facilities and all the things, and then dreaming a little bit is I think the fun part. And then we bring Clayton and Dustin in to talk more about those financial conditions. So with that.
Thank you. And Kelly, you did a good job at the beginning summarizing kind of how it started and our role in this process. And really from our perspective, we help cities, counties, schools, really any governmental entity when interest rates were dropping near all-time lows a few years ago. Part of our role involved kind of assessing outstanding debt of districts, cities and counties, and seeing if there were refinancing opportunities. Another part of that is districts that have outstanding debt, are there opportunities coming up where they have debt falling off, and why that may be important when you start factoring in really the main reason of a lot of districts don't understand that you can issue another bond issue while you have outstanding debt. A lot of them will wait until a year or so out where their debt drops off, and then they go for an election. A big advantage of being able to assess this early on before the district's debt drops off in 2030, a big advantage of assessing that now versus waiting, number one right now is just construction costs, the inflation of construction costs. If you wait for a project and what you're looking at now, and you wait those 7 years to have an election, the cost of doing those specific projects is going to go up substantially by waiting, just from construction cost. And that's just looking on as a historical basis. And so being ahead of the game in understanding that, and then understanding the financial perspective when you look at outstanding debt, are all really big advantages. And then in this presentation, I believe there's a chart that will show you kind of where we're at from an interest rate perspective. And if you've been following interest rates lately, you'll notice that the Federal Reserve, over the last year has done several pretty significant interest rate hikes on short-term rates, and that also affects long-term rates in the bond financing. But really, the importance of what we want to show in this chart is over the last 35 years, rates have been higher than where they're at today, almost 85% of the time. So it's still a good time to complete a financing when you look at it from a historical basis and not get all caught up in really what's happened over the past year. But really, those are kind of the two main pieces of background information I wanted to provide to the district as well, and just the understanding of the importance of timing of when you're looking at this and all the factors that you're considering, and just interest rates, as well as kind of being ahead of the ball on construction costs. But that's really all I wanted to share from the financing perspective on this. If you had any questions specifically related to it, I'd be happy to answer.
I think we will when we get to the discussion part.
Okay.
If you don't mind sticking around.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I should follow the money guy. We call these recommendations, but these are the recommendations. These are the things that your community put forward, and what we did from our last process. So I'm going to just, if you look at the left side is a process that we went through. Hey, standing here in front of you guys. That left-hand side is really the early idea of coming to, we call it build a bond. So this is the build a bond process where we just had everything that anyone said during the process that needed to be done at any of the schools, and everybody, we had 5 or 6 tables, we had 6 or 8 people around each one of those tables, and each one of them created a concept and an idea. We reported out and talked about what was important to each group, what their concepts were and why it was important. So that was that first phase. And so this was a big dreaming phase with lots of things happening. We took this, and there was no dollars involved in this conversation. And the reason is because we feel strongly that the strong components of a bond issue that creates, or of a project that you need done, will rise to the top, or it will be those things that everyone finds important to the community. So the second is us. We created some of those plans. We asked everyone we had some conversations about them. Then we asked everyone to dot poll. So we dot polled the projects that everyone felt like were important. We asked everyone to do 4 dots. So the one color, the green, was the number one, your number one dot, and so on. So then the last is just a week or so ago that we all got together and we came back with parts and pieces that actually had dollar values associated with them. And that's when we ask everyone, there's a line across the bottom that we said, these pieces and parts all meet some kind of dollar value, and they're a certain size, and they measure to the same length as that bar. And so put those things that you think are important in order of your importance. And so this is just an example of one of those. And you can see everything had a different color. It had a different length for the dollar values. And we did not know how far we'd go out, because one of the things that we've also been talking about during this time frame is more consideration of more of a master plan as opposed to just, let's just, we'll have a dollar value and we'll work to a dollar value. No, it's more of about, because there are probably more things here than you can really take care of potentially. So we took this and there were 5 of those just like that. And so what we did is we created a couple of options from conversations that we had with individuals in those groups, and when they did present out what their thoughts were. So this happens to be this we're going to call this the existing scheme, because this is showing the existing track. It's widening the track. It's providing this site as the competition football and competition soccer field. Also adding a significant amount of parking. There's 450 cars in this location. There's also a drive that comes through this location to just to alleviate some of that the traffic that comes right down here. Eisenhower, yeah. So and then we also have, and we'll show a little bit in a little bit. We'll show you a little more about some of the things that we're working with at the high school level. If you remember seeing those bars that we created, on the left-hand side, you saw a lot of blue. There were blue bars there. Well, that was everyone, pretty much everyone in each group put some kind of CTE program as their first consideration. Then there were some site work things, and then there was football conversations, some of the athletic fields conversations. Okay. So just to give you a sense of what this looks like, we've worked with Josh and his group, as well as our civil engineers, our landscape designers, and everything that you see from this road to the north looks like this in dollars and cents. This happens to be primarily this is all of the earthwork and all of the track, the fields. This would be a turf field with those dollars. And then you have 1,000-seat home stands, concessions, bathrooms, and official lockers, as well as 500 seats on the visitor side. It is a official track. It is adding 2 more lanes and length to that whole entire area. The 649, we just broke that out just because this was such an important component, as we heard from everyone. That's the cost of this roadway system from here to this way. Another concept that was early in conversations after our dot polling, actually, that some of this came up as being, really where people wanted to head. Just for everyone's knowledge, east-west, or excuse me, north-south. North-south is the preferred direction of a football field. It's actually northeast to southwest, but north-south is traditionally what you'd like to see, and you can see the other field, which is already in place, is east to west. This plan actually shows this plan actually shows parking aligned with the existing parking. We're showing a mill and overlay here, and probably redoing some of that parking area there. This all being new. This is football field with, again, 1,000 seats here, 500 for visitors, 500 for a soccer field that's here. This is a turf field in both locations. All throwing events are down here. You do have long jump, broad jump, pole vault within the track. Here we also have, we're showing the CTE program, which actually connects both the high school and the middle school, so you would have enclosed, again, talking about that safety and security component. Everyone in the group at some point in time talked about that safety and security of students being outside. So bringing the CTE program into this location, as well as making a connection so students would not have to be outside, is the emphasis on this plan. There is we're showing some renovation at the high school media center. This just gives you a sense of what that looks like in comparison. One of the things that I didn't talk about on this plan is the very south end of the football field. We are showing what we traditionally call a field house. It's got visitors, concession visitors, bathrooms. It's got space in there for teams to come at halftime into those locations, and then also would have officials' locker rooms and storage for most likely track and field events. Okay.
Does that dollar value include the CTE portion?
What's that?
Does that dollar value include the CTE portion?
That does not.
Okay.
So just we were just wanting to put these in front of you and say, this is the difference between those two. You do have a single turf field on this left-hand side, 2 turf fields on the right-hand side. You do have a new track, can play soccer on both of those fields. You play football on both of those fields.
Kevin?
Yes.
I might have missed it. Did you say the existing option there, did that also include the CTE structure?
These numbers do not include any CTE. They will here in a minute. So those are the two. And so one of the things is that the building options, pretty much in all the conversations with all the groups, were very similar. We had a few things that were outside of that, but those could be for conversation. But in this case, what we're showing is the CTE area right here, making that connection, that walkway being part of that. We are showing a lift. It's more than a lift, it's an elevator at the junior high school basketball court. So you can get things down. It would be a large enough, if you've ever been to IKEA, something similar to that. Down to the lower level, you'd be able to take a grand piano down there for graduations, etc. This also shows the media center being in that area right there, about 3,500 square feet being remodeled. We have conversations about this being the CTE area turning into the district's maintenance operations, as well as potentially transportation is right here, and whether or not we could get some of transportation in here. And there's even consideration of you could use that building for a district office if you wanted to, or other operations. So that is right over here on the right-hand side. You can see that's the CTE. That's making sure that that walkway is enclosed as part of that work. The ADA freight elevator and media center, that's right at 8.2 million. We also have, just in gray, we've got, because this wasn't necessarily one of those conversations, but we have just put some dollars down here showing those other spaces being renovated. And with that, that puts these two next to each other. And you can see that pretty significant difference, but I think that part of that was just to identify all of the things that we did here regarding some of the potential work that they'd like to see. I'm just going to go back and say, oh, yes, Melissa.
Can you go back to the slide with all the colors and the dots, like where all three of them
okay.
are lined up? That one. So I was just going to point out here, and I think that it's great in color because you can really see in our community group, we had a variety of different people in that group. I actually wanted to commend the board for putting that together because you really did an excellent job of reaching, just a wide variety of the community. But what you can see with these three pictures is it's a little bit different, but it's not a lot different. I mean, everybody at the end of the night, there were always 5 groups. At the end of the night, we were all really saying the same thing. And I thought that was very interesting and very powerful as well. And like Kevin was saying, the big things that we identified were the CTE building, which I think has to happen. We have to have more options in this community for education, especially with the rising costs of college. One of the biggest lies that I was ever told as a high school student was just get your college degree, just get a degree. It doesn't matter what it's in, just get it. I think that there are so many more options out there, and we really have to start identifying those options. And then, like I said earlier, the facilities. Our facilities could really use an upgrade. When I was at the sub-state game, when the boys played Eudora, there was a mom that came. The game had already started. I was waiting for my son. He's in 6th grade. He plays soccer. He was super excited to cheer on the Bulldogs at that game. So I was waiting for him, and a mom walked up, very panicky, very frantic. You could tell she was late. She was from Eudora, and she goes, "When are you guys going to upgrade your facilities? They are horrible." She used the word horrible to describe our facilities. I think that she was describing both the facilities and the fact that the game started at 3:45. It's very hard for students to get to the game at 3:45. It's extremely hard for working parents to get to the facility at 3:45. We had to start the game at 3:45 to get it in because of daylight savings had already happened. And each of those games, if I'm correct, started earlier and earlier. So, but I just wanted to point out that, we all really lined up and we really identified the same things.
I wanted to have I asked Coach Blanchard to be here. I asked him to be here strategically from a standpoint. I wanted somebody from a teacher's perspective. And one thing that one of our members pointed out was we didn't have that coach voice. So I wanted to be able to have Coach Blanchard here. And the ask of him to talk tonight was, this is very cold because a lot of this is new for him. But I asked him to be able to speak to the idea as a coach and as a teacher of what impact do facilities have on the mindsets of our students in terms of pride, recognition, involvement, that sort of thing. So I am putting him in a very unfair situation to this. But I asked him a few days ago, and he said he would be here. So, Coach, do you mind saying a few things?
Well, the only thing I can say is there's no basketball practice facility in our dimension, so I'm a little upset with whoever was in the planning part of that. But I did write some notes down. and not that we're all on a different page, I'm trying to convince anybody, but the idea of maybe that voice, and of course, we all wear a lot of hats as a coach and a teacher and a parent, and then a member of the community. So just from specifically the basketball standpoint, I've been the head coach for 2.5 years now, and one of the things before I took the job is I had kind of a blueprint in my head of how I wanted my program to look, knowing that this was probably my last head coaching job that I'll ever have, because nobody is probably in a position like Mr. Brittingham where he probably had to hire me. You know, no one else is going to have to hire me, so they're going to have other better options than me. But one of the things that is in one of the pillars of our culture is a word called enhance. And what we try to do in the basketball program is try to enhance whatever it is we're doing, whether it be our team, our program, our community, or our school. And so for the last 2.5 years, if you've seen our program, I think from the aspect of maybe our social media presence, or bringing in an outside photographer, or trying to get our schedule changed, we've renovated a locker room with the help of Mr. Harmon. We've done a lot of things just for our little, we'll say, corner of the garden. Okay, and that's the big thing that my assistant coach, Pete Carter, you guys know Pete and I are like, if we can control the controllables, we're doing our job. So everything that we can control, we're trying to do. So as far as how does this relate to the bigger picture? And I'm not here to brag about the basketball program, but I would if you wanted to indulge me a little bit. That's our culture. So I guess as a district or a community, or what is our vision? What is our culture? What do we want it to be? And I've been to, I think Ms. Baldwin said, Ottawa and Eudora specifically, and knowing coaches and teachers there, they're like, hey, look at our new wing. And they've taken me to these places before a game or when I was over there. And I thought, where would I take them? What would I show them in our district or our building? Our PAC is great. But after that, I don't know if I'd say, where we would go and look. Hopefully it would be, well, I'll see you on the court and we're going to beat you on the court. That hopefully we continue to do that. But yeah, all of the things and all the people have done a tremendous job of relaying this. But as a coach, some of the things that I put down as what I feel like as facilities will continue to deteriorate. Every year they're a year older. Every year they will deteriorate. So those fields and those places outside of CTE are educational environments. The basketball court, the soccer field, the cross-country course, these are educational environments as well. So the CTE would be unbelievable if we look at the districts around us. And just earlier tonight, I heard Molly say, I almost didn't come to Baldwin because they didn't have an FFA program. What if we missed out on Molly? What if we miss out on other kids and families that are out there? Because like that Eudora mom said, our facilities are terrible. I bet she was more mad after the game when we beat them. But anyway, we won't go there. And then I think about staff and teacher retention and what are we doing for staff members at the high school. Not that I need a new history wing or anything like that, but I think this goes to show is staff and teachers, hey, we're looking to help provide for you, help new space, new equipment, whatever it might be for those CTE wing and things like that. And then, of course, you guys mentioned the strategic plan. Okay, it falls right in line with the strategic plan. But I think bottom line, what I heard early in my educational career, is it right for kids? And I think that's what we always go back to. So is it the right thing for kids? So that's really, I don't know if I gave you a great coaching perspective. I probably wasn't the right guy that Mr. Bland has, or Mr. Dodge hasn't been on the job very long. I know, he is. Mr. Dodge hadn't been on the job very long, so he asked me, he didn't know I would stumble through this. But thank you guys for everything you do. Not just through this, but another Monday night here, giving your time and your efforts for that. So I guess, I don't know if questions or anything else you would say, Mr. Dodge. Okay, all right, thank you guys.
Another piece that came out of all these meetings, especially when we got to this phase, is the dot pole. As a teacher, there's been a lot of like, do we need a stadium, do we not? And so when we got to the dot poll phase, it was nice to know that the CTE wing actually took precedence. Of the priorities, the CTE was the one that received the most votes. And it was nice to be able to see that happen, knowing the demand some of our teachers have, like our culinary program is exploding. We can't put enough kids in that room, to the point that we know that we have this need and the students want it. We're giving them surveys to ask them what their pathways are. We're having discussions in site council meetings for our high school about the importance, especially for parents, that we offer these pathways for students so that they have a guide to take them through certifications they could earn before they leave. And so the blue piece, if you look at that right side, that literally every group was wanting a CTE structure of some kind so that we can support those pathways and help our students. So just wanted to.
There was a student there that put all 4 of his dots on the CTE.
Well, I was gonna go to this end and ask, what kind of questions did you guys have of us that you needed from us? Gonna, just because the next thing is to talk about the next steps. But any questions that we created for you? One of the things I would tell you is that what you're looking at these are certainly budget numbers of projects. If we get to the point where we can get a little bit more effort and a little bit more imagery for the guys at Lloyd, I think we can, those numbers, you would hope that would tighten up. So.
Just again to facilitate, Kevin's going to talk about next steps too. Circling back to everything we've been told along the way as kind of our starting point. And just so no one's thrown off with numbers that you're seeing there. And I'm not saying this in a condescending way towards the board. I'm trying to say this for people who are watching. Wait a minute, 30 million, wait, what? Part of this process is to identify all of the priorities and big picture things that emerged in this and put all of that there. What we will have to decide as a board is pair that with the financial information that we have been given previously. As of today, I'm sorry, that's why I wanted you to stick around. Yep. We've been getting these updates all along. This book was given, I kept this, pulled this out. This was from, I think, last spring. But things have shifted a little bit. Part of the reason, again, why this began was, hey, guys, you have an opportunity here to do something really special with holding flat with your bonded interest and the dollar amount that can generate. At that time, it was between 11 and 13. More recently, we were told 15. We just want to keep our eyes on that. So part of the discussion that we as a board, a philosophical one, is that where it's going to be. Now, that decision is not tonight. Actually, part of that decision will need to be tonight. Or do you want to go beyond that? That is something that everybody has a right to express now that it's at this part. The other piece, though, I can certainly appreciate how overwhelming all that can look if you've not been a part of at the meetings and seen how all this has evolved and developed over time. We want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to ask questions about how certain things, we want to make sure you all have that chance. Once we go through all of this information, after this meeting, our bond subcommittee group will bring back a recommendation of what that looks like to the board in early January. If that's what the decision and comfort level of everybody is. We would need to have a special meeting in January to make a decision as to whether or not board adopts, potentially adopts a resolution calling for a bond election. So that's the only decision that we make. So just so that everybody's really clear about what those steps entail. Did anything from a financial standpoint, did I say anything that was wrong? Please feel free to correct.
Nope.
Okay.
Great.
Okay. I don't want to keep you here all night if you would otherwise be done.
Oh, it's fine. No,
I have a question.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So can you, it doesn't have to be exact, but give us a ballpark of
what a mill equals to this project above the 50, I mean, so if we're looking at that $19,000 project number, what does that look like?
So good question, and we haven't ran the numbers on anything above that $15 million mark that we had recently projected with the no tax or no mill levy increase. So these are really kind of off the cuff. We could run those as soon as tomorrow, if you'd like a more exact answer, if that would be better.
That might be better, that's fine, but is that information you can provide to us so that we understand what that looks like?
Yep.
Climbing that, or climbing forward?
Yep, and everything that we've looked at as well has been with a 15-year financing term. Bond issues, and maybe this is just, I'm sure this is information that Dustin had shared previously that might just be helpful to know as if you're considering higher amounts. You do have up to a 30-year term through bond issuance, and so 15-year term is, sorry, go ahead, Mark.
I was just going to say, in preparation for our last meeting, Dustin had given us some numbers to go by. He had mentioned that at this point, to stay mill neutral would be about 15 million. I believe he said half a mill would put us at 16 million. But there are other conditions that had to fall within that. I don't know if that helps. Over 15.
Yep. So that term would affect that as well.
Okay, so can you also provide us the different terms of what that kind of a spreadsheet, if you will?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, so just a reminder, I would say the average that a district usually probably goes with is anywhere between 20 and 25. So by going to a 15-year term, that is one of the shorter terms that most districts move forward with for bond election.
20, 25 years under.
20, 25 years, yes. Term of finance.
Is more normal, is what you're saying?
Yes, it's probably, that's the average when a district moves forward with something.
In terms of early January, just to clarify, what I've been told is we would have to have information submitted with correct language on that by the first Friday of January. So that would mean a special board meeting the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, and want to be able to give some time for us to make sure that everything's correct before we submit it in.
We did ask for a little bit of clarification for that.
What's that?
We did ask for a little bit of clarification and talked to Clayton and Dustin a little bit about it. So I put those dates up here because, and so this is tonight. So defining a scope, cost, and time, you could move it as far to the 16th.
That matches with the booklet that Dustin gave us a long time ago.
Right.
It's right there.
Right.
That's better than what?
Yeah. So this gives you an opportunity to have an opportunity to meet again.
Well, our subcommittee will do that.
Yeah.
Sometime.
Yeah.
The 16th.
You don't have to meet the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th.
Yeah.
Which would then get you some period of time in here where end of January, the starting of a campaign.
And to be clear, the reason for doing that in January is if we were trying to get on the ballot for an April election. If we're not trying to, if we're not trying to get to an April election and you want to do May, then it doesn't have to be January. It would need to be early February. It would follow that same pattern. The January to April is the best practices of what's recommended, but I want to make sure everybody understands in the spirit of transparency what the options are.
Speaking of transparency, are we going to be able to access these slides and materials in the next 3 weeks?
Oh, yeah, you can have, we'll send, well, we could just give you the USB drive or
Are they accessible to the community at large?
Put them in board docs, they will be. We can also email those out. We can, absolutely.
I mean, just something to step in there for the board to determine what that ends up looking like, but I think that's helpful to have the community be knowledgeable about the conversations we had at this point as well. Changing topics a little bit here. If you go back maybe 2 slides there to the 2 visuals there, the 2 options. Yeah, right there. So this would be the scope of the 2 projects that we kind of really work through with those committees, right? So this does not affect any of the elementary buildings, so they would be untouched in this current, in these 2 option markups here. Okay.
That was my question. So the committee is bringing us a recommendation that only affects the junior high and high school campuses. That means the confidence that we don't need additional pods, additional wings, we're comfortable with our enrollment numbers for the next decade? What kind of discussions were there?
You want to talk about enrollment study?
Yes, so with that, the question came up throughout part of this is, what's the enrollment study? You've got external factors with the Panasonic plant that's coming out. Our city just annexed a significant amount of land as part of it too. An enrollment study is a good way to go through and get some projections, and they'll project you out about 5 years or so, give you an idea of what to expect. The issue with that is when you do an enrollment study, you have to have infrastructure in the undeveloped area so that they can map it out as an actual rooftop, and then they'll factor in their, child per household number there. Until you get that infrastructure in, the streets or the utilities there, they won't count. That makes sense. So what we could do this spring is start that enrollment study process to get a current picture of it, and then in a couple of years do that again. And I say that because the Panasonic plant is going to be starting within 5 years. The projection is they're going to have 500 jobs coming in, and then shortly after that it'll be up to 4,000, and then shortly after that 8,000. And so that's going to give us those enrollment studies that should help us with that.
And so just to Andy on one of your question, there was discussion about that. There was a discussion, and we actually showed the idea of adding 2 classrooms to this building specifically because this is a little tighter than any building that you have.
And so the idea behind this too, and I'm trying to figure out what's the easiest way to put it. We're dealing with a lot of deferred maintenance issues. This is not a prep for the future concept. This is taking care of those projects that over time have become big ticket items. So this right now, it's getting our facilities caught up. It's from a CTE perspective. You'd be looking at getting students access to the resources, the tools, the materials that align with today's CTE program. It would give us, from an athletics concept, it would be getting our working towards the prize for the community, adding parking to our facilities there from that standpoint. To say that this is the last bond issue we've got for another decade, I don't know if that would be fair to make that statement, but what this does do is it takes care of those big ticket deferred maintenance items that have over time.
It's easy for me to say, well, yeah, this bond issue looks great. I got a year on board, and fine. But I think the timing, like between our last bond and this potential bond, is more or less appropriate, barring any extraordinary circumstances for our community. And so you have to think a little bit in the future, like how often is our community going to hear about us saying, "Let's go." So that's where I'm coming from. I also, it's just, it's an awkward process because there are only 3 of you on that committee, and so you come with a recommendation. I think 4 of us naturally, well, we have questions. Was this addressed? How are we covered here? And so I don't want any of you 3 hardworking people to think there's any disrespect for your process. It's hard for us being thrown a thing and saying, well, I assume ABC was done, but you want to be sure.
Well, I can assure you from that standpoint, those questions were, again, the thing that even broke it down to the point of here, tell us what you think, what are the priorities? Then that was recategorized for us and it was like, okay, prioritize these buildings, and that bared out over and over and over again. We're not going to be able to do everything we could want to do. That's going to be a reality no matter what. In terms of were those needs addressed in those buildings represented? Absolutely. From the start of the tour, that I went on with you all when we went to every building, climbed up things, I climbed down things. Every place was looked at, every place was accounted for, and then, you know, in terms of presenting that to the committee, and then having all three committees, and then having say, hey, what do we think we could get done, and what's going to make the most impact for the most students given these conditions. Of course, we would always want to do something more here or there, but the clear priorities from student, staff, and community members, and I didn't dot hole nothing, because I get my vote here, so I figure that's fine. But CTE and facilities that can assist our not just our athletics, but my God, our band program, who has no place to practice. There, you know, community outreach programming in partnership with the Recreation Commission. It also saves a lease at Baker University. That's becoming more and more unsustainable every year. So those were the two major things that emerged, along with safety and security. And part of the genius of the CTE aspect, and Kelly and Phil, please feel free to weigh in if I say anything wrong or you think something different. But part of that was, that is a very exposed place on our grounds. We know we've got work to do. That's a way that we can definitely kill two birds with one stone. That breezeway becomes enclosed. Either way, that becomes part of a solution. So I can assure you all those things were looked at, but I certainly understand as people who haven't been in the room while you're like, wait, there's no elementary? Do we not care about elementary? That process was represented. It's just not where the priorities bore out in this process. So, Kelly, did you have something to add?
Well, you pretty much covered it. If you go back to the same three pictures that she referred to earlier with the dot project on it, the far left picture represented one of the evening's visioning projects, where we got all these pieces of, each group got these pieces of paper and got to put them, and some of those papers went to the, which isn't even up here, went to the the baseball and softball fields. Some of them went to this building, and this building got the most attention because of the fact that it was designed to potentially expand that direction or this direction on the wings, and there were papers that were put on that. But then when it got further down to the next, it was the next night or maybe not next night, the next meeting, which would have been a couple weeks later or the one after that. So within a month's time, then it was like, okay, all the papers that we got had no dollar figures to them. And once dollar figures started coming into the picture, then the community, the vision groups had to start prioritizing with these, with the Far Right project, which is taking things that cost dollars. And because these are the newer two buildings in the district, I think it shifted that other way. Plus, expanding this building was for a future need that doesn't exist today, where I think they ultimately feel like all of those needs that got dotted are needs that we have today versus future. And I wish we could do them all. I mean, if we had a money tree, I think there would be additions to all of the facilities.
That's a good way to explain it, and that helps give context to what Mr. Dodge was describing as deferred maintenance. We're already behind, and with open borders legislation, the reality is students like Molly who are making decisions, you can easily, with no problem, go to Ottawa, go to Wellsville. I mean, that part of it's changed too, and so there are needs that have been identified that in our current context we're unable to meet. That's the best way I know how to summarize the process. It's hard to do for you guys because this has been months of meetings and conversations.
But I think questions are good, so I think your
Yes.
point is excellent. I mean, where does that,
Yes.
I'd say ask all the questions you have.
Yes.
You mentioned deferred maintenance a couple times. Where are we addressing that stuff?
What's that? Deferred maintenance for the CT facility itself.
We're not talking about, like, there's no HVAC that costs $1 million that needs to be replaced in this building or anything like that.
No. One of the, I was just going to pile on what you said, but I think I heard something that was really, to me, it was profound from the group. It was probably more than one group. And they said, we identified things we don't have, not things that we need augmented, not something that needs to be added to, but something that we don't have. So thus I think CTE was up there, and certainly the athletics.
Well, and I'd like to see, in addition to this, I'm just speaking as one more member, but for me, after going through this process, I'd like to see a little more structure or strategy to capital outlay projects that can support all of this. Because I think there was a lot of things that were identified through your, bringing in these pictures of spaces in the buildings that need to be updated. I think all of that together, if we could put together some sort of plan that we can fit within our capital outlay budget that maybe we're accountable to, that we put out there for a 10-year period or something, I think it could really tie in a lot of this.
To that point, we do have a capital outlay plan based on how this falls out. There will be conversations. Mike and I have already had conversations on some of the things that started off in the conversation early on and did not make it to this point. He and I have already talked about getting quotes on and doing some things. I'll throw out a couple of examples. Sorry, Mike, I'm putting you on the spot on this.
He was smiling. He knew it was coming.
Yes, he knew it was coming. All right, the locker bays over at the high school. When that high school was built in 1994, 1993, you use lockers. Now, I've not seen one kid use a locker in those. I know that they've checked them out to a handful. And the kids right now, they don't wear coats, so they don't have a place that they don't need to hang their kids. And so they're finding a lot of their stuff that they're just traveling with backpacks. So those locker bays aren't being used, but they also create a supervision issue. You've got hidden spots that you can't see. The third part about that is from creating instructional opportunities, collaborative conversations, meeting spaces, et cetera. Those lockers could be removed, and then you have the ability for creative learning spaces, flexible learning spaces. You improve the supervision of students being able to stand outside your door and being able to view what's going on. And so one of the things I've asked Mike to do is over break is to find some of those locker spaces, drill underneath the base to see what's underneath it. If there's no concrete blocking underneath that, we could then over the summer work, we could start that process of removing those lockers. We can auction them off through Purple Wave, and then work on creating the flooring that's necessary, and over time strategically building that creative learning space that's there, and enhancing that over time. To your point of a strategic capital outlay plan, the library. About a year or so ago, Mike had bid out carpet for that space, and at the time it was about $19,000-$20,000. Knowing that this process was being undertaken, the decision at that time was, well, let's just see where this goes. So I've asked Mike to go ahead and investigate that again. What would that take? That's something that we could build into a capital outlay plan that's part of it, and get that again from a strategic standpoint. Get with Brent, get with Kelly, get with Lois, and find out what can we do with that space with the furniture. Are there grants available? In my prior district, there was a Douglas County level grant that was access to create a variety of flexible learning spaces all throughout the high school. And they did locker bay renovations as well as their media center update. So there is definitely, this will trigger in an adjustment to what we do with capital outlay for a number of years to that point.
And I just would add the benefit of doing this extensive study and the worthiness of that is because it has shown us all the things we can do. And then in terms of being strategic about capital outlay, absolutely. And then just, separating that out, which I believe is what was reflective in the committee work among all three groups, is what kind of things do you only have the opportunity in those large scale ways to capture them on. That's different than what you can, doesn't mean you still can't work on these things, and we should. But what are the things that are your, fiscally prudent opportunities but only those larger ticket items that you can capture them on. The best, savviest, most efficient capital outlay planning would not get us a CTE facility. We can probably do something about lockers. So that was just so you guys know, like the rest of the board members that weren't there, those were the kind of aspects that were guiding a lot of those table conversations too, as people were taking those little pieces okay, well, maybe we could take that one away and put that, it's still important, but the only reason why things were on a piece of paper was because they'd already been identified as important. So it doesn't mean it all gets thrown away. It's making decisions about what are those things that are potentially the smartest to capture in a bond.
And I think a good example of that was the elevator for the gym. That's I think it was a $990,000 project there that currently people with mobility issues cannot access our gym floor, and big items can't get down to that floor either. That's not something that's going to be easy to piecemeal together over the course of 5 or 6 years. When we build an elevator shaft on the side of our building, it makes a lot more sense to have it on as a part of a bigger bond issue here, and it does carry a pretty significant weight, financial weight to that as well, but it needs to be done.
The rec has, if you all will remember, the rec had come to us and asked for some mill increases because their budget runs through the school district, not through the cities. And we had said, hey, can you pause because we're, potentially going to be doing a bond study. Hey, there are things in terms of accessibility, even involved over at the ball fields that they, made sure and brought to the attention. So in terms of turning over every stone, from lots of different standpoints, I feel very confident that we have. What we do about that is then what comes next in terms of decision making.
I do have two clarifying questions here too. On those, both those mock-ups there, that's all on existing school property. Is that right? There's no acquisition of land in this case. We're just expanding the current property we have.
Correct.
And the other one was, and this may not be fully mocked out, but about how much instructional or square footage do we get from that CTE section where that bridge connector between the two?
10,000 square feet.
10,000.
Right, it's right around the same size as what you have.
Okay. And that translates to, is that 6 classrooms? How does that really?
It probably relates to what we've seen done is have 3 or 4 classrooms, and then you probably have 3 studios or bays that you can do programs in. There's nothing that says either there's dollars in here. If the programs were to grow, there's nothing that says you just don't spend those dollars and turn your existing CTN back to more programs.
I just think it's really neat, the idea of I know there's a ton of kids who go from junior high to high school every day for class for Spanish, for instance, right? They would pass right through that CTE wing to get to there, and currently they walk outside, which is obviously not great. But having them walk through a nursing program or a auto mechanic program and see that every day, twice a day when you go to and from class is pretty cool. Exposure level for them just to think through future opportunities for themselves.
One of the, and I'll get to this in the superintendent's report when I talk about the pathways piece. Derek and the junior high staff, with Carly and Brant and Kelly and then his staff with Reggie and Autumn, they've done a great job of looking at the last couple of months. I've given them a pretty heavy task on exploring our pathways. They've done a great job with that. One of the things with the pathways piece is that we're just going to go 155. The introduction level courses are on the tab of the district. And then once you get beyond that, you get into the reimbursable programs that the state offers. So that can help with a lot of support of the programs, growth of new programs as well. But one of the cool part about it is it also gives opportunity to add electives at the junior high level that are CTE based. And so you're getting some of those introduction courses when they're in the junior high as 8th graders. And then when they come to the high school, they now start that relationship. They may have that passion to get to that certificate completion piece, which is the ultimate goal of the CTE pathway. And to your point, as you're going through to take Spanish or to take the journalism is one of the pathways, that's an example, but take Spanish or the math classes that are there, you're traveling through and you have the ability to see what's there.
Is there anything that anybody would like to add or ask? Josh, what's the square footage at Ottawa, the CTE?
CTE?
I know it's not, ours can't be quite as big as that, but
yeah,
just for frame of reference.
I'm going to say 27,000 square feet.
It's like,
I'm pretty sure I looked it up.
It was at least double is what I was thinking. Yeah. But the creativity, I don't know if anybody, I know some people in this room have been down there to see that. But the adaptability of the space as well is very exciting in terms of what it can be convert to. I mean, and that's your job, obviously, but you know, there are a lot of exciting things about student impact. It's a heavy thing to consider with all of this. If you all have follow-up questions that you think of, it's a lot to take in. We've been doing this for several months now, so of course our comfort level is going to be different with some of that, but I do not take it as any form of disrespect to have questions asked. That's a good thing. So if you think of more later, please don't hesitate. I may not answer like on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, but probably like after that.
We should be in on it.
Yeah, right? So at this time, we would be looking at a January 9th special meeting to make a decision one way or the other, which is on a Monday. And the bond subcommittee, which is Kelly, Phil, myself, and Mr. Dodge, will get with you guys again based on all the stuff that's already been presented and bring something back to you all on January 9th.
Thank you for getting clarification on those dates. Appreciate that.
I mean, we were going to make it happen, but we were kind of sweating it. We were like, oh, 4th? Okay.
So are we officially on for the 9th at 6:30, like typical time, or are we?
What does that look like for everyone?
Well, that would mean we need to meet before.
We will have to meet before, but that doesn't have to, there's.
I'm free New Year's Eve.
We'll have to find time before the 9th, but that also gives us more time to do that too. And we can talk about that part later. That doesn't have to be a formal thing because there's only 3 of us. Right. It's not a quorum, so we don't have to like declare or file anything if there's 3. So that can be a little more flexible based on what everybody's holiday schedules are.
So special meeting on the 9th, regular meeting on
the 16th. Regular meeting.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah, regular meeting on the 17th.
Kelly, I'm sorry to throw a wrench at you. Do we still have a special meeting on the 12th?
I'm going to talk about that on miscellaneous. Okay, is there anything else for this topic for now? Yes.
So to circle back, we mentioned earlier getting some updated financial projections based on 15, 25, and
20 and 25
and 30-year bond rates based on current interest rates. So you're shaking your head like,
yep.
Okay, all right, as tonight should get that.
And also maybe like a mill levy, like what that looks like.
Okay, yeah, no problem. We'll have that to you tomorrow.
Thank you. Anything else on this time? Okay. All right. Thank you all very, very much. Lots to think through, and we'll do so. All right. We're now ready for new business, which we don't have any. Is anyone dying for a restroom break? Okay. Why don't we call a 5-minute recess, and then we'll come back for board member input. Okay, home stretch, home stretch. Calling the meeting back to order. We do not have new business, and we're going to move on to board member input. First up is the co-op report.
Oh, I'm going to do it?
Yeah.
Oh, is that what you asked? Oh, yeah. So at the last meeting, it was a brilliantly chaired meeting by the president of the.
Who is that?
Oh, my gosh. His name escapes me. Anyway, it was very efficient. Mostly, we spent a lot of time talking about the update of our progress on our strategic planning document. And Chris, do you want to just hold that up?
I'll wipe the thing so you can see. Yeah. These little color bars indicate like how far along on each of the indicators we're making progress so far, and it's hard to see for Phil probably. Supervision over there, but it helps kind of visualize how far along in the completion of each of those things we are up to this point. And this is, I think, the same time that we're on for the district about this summer where we started this out.
Right. But when we were going through our strategic planning process, we were pretty intentional about that. Once we got the goals set, we needed to keep track of those, and this is a way to sort of see progress on those. And so each meeting we have updates on how we're making progress on strategic plans. And so we're going to try to get you guys copies of this just so you can sort of see what this looks like visually, because it's a nice way of tracking this thing. Otherwise, I don't remember a whole lot of other stuff that we talked about. We always talked about personnel a little bit, so we did that, but otherwise it was.
Other than paras and every other certified individual thing, we're in good shape.
On that tracking system, I love that. I love visual stuff too. Is that based on a 5-year goal? Is that like annual? So that's.
Or at least the first 3 years of that projection, because Greenbush walked us through that process as well, through the co-op side as well. So yeah, we're making pretty good headway on a lot of those.
There's a lot of color on there.
There's a lot of color on there already.
That's why I wanted to understand the range that it represented of the target goal, because that's.
Yeah, so some of them are things like, it's something we've never done before, we talked a bit about, was surveying students about their needs. We actually never strategically go through and ask kids with disabilities what they need, what they want in terms of programming. We're working with some folks to try to figure out how do we go about asking those questions of kids who are nonverbal, for instance. So we're sorting through some of these issues because we never have tackled this problem before, but we certainly want to ask them their opinions on things. And actually, interestingly, there's a legal requirement to ask kids their perception of school 2 years after they've graduated. But there's no requirement to ask them when they're in school. So it's a little bit, information we can't do much about at that point. So we're trying to streamline that a little bit by asking kids what kind of programming they prefer and what kind of needs they aren't having addressed at this point.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's it.
When in doubt, listen to
Just ask
the
kids.
students.
The kids usually know. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. Anybody have anything for under miscellaneous?
I have a question I'm not sure if the email came from Ashley. About the pre-K programming, we have a waiting list for pre-K. I was wondering if did we get that block grant or from the
from last year, or like right now I'm currently working on the KPP grant.
Is that the one that's due like tomorrow or day after?
It's due February. It just opened. December 12th was the day that it opened.
Okay.
And it's due February 7th.
Okay,
maybe?
that's great. I didn't know. There is that block grant also that the state promoted, I think, but that's through who's that through?
I have information on it. I haven't done into it.
I know it's due day after tomorrow or something, so it may be too late this year, but I just want to make sure we get as many grants as we can, because I think that a lot of school districts get those.
I'm also looking at the at-risk piece too, because
I'm
trying to find the guidelines on that one, because it shows that stuff has been reviewed already, so that's something else that Natalie with USD have been talking to.
Great.
I would work out.
Okay, good. I was just curious about that when I read your update, so thank you.
One other thing that came up at the co-op board meeting that I want to bring up to this board is that it's come to the attention of the co-op that our district, Baldwin district, is the only district of the three that has a COVID leave policy that's still in effect, similar to how things looked, 2 years ago when if you brought in a positive test, you were granted additional days of COVID leave. Eudora and Wellsville have since let that pass, and they don't keep that policy. I think maybe we ought to consider when do we let that expire, or how do we have conversations around potentially looking at letting that, changing that, because currently we only have that one particular sickness that has that qualification for not unlimited leave, but additional leave. Should have people have a positive test for that.
When I asked the board about that this year, I asked them just this year, and just to get us through things, we still anticipated that we would have staff or students.
So it's set to automatically sunset.
Yeah, we just did it, and I'm in agreement in terms of where I am today. I'm in agreement with that idea. I don't anticipate a scenario where I would seek that again next year.
Okay.
This has been a good school year in terms of our practices and getting back to where we were, prior to 2020. So this has been fun. This that would almost be the last issue.
Okay.
Great. Couple other notes. Just want to make sure board members are aware that poinsettias from all of us were delivered to each of the district buildings and headquarters for various points of operation, along with an email on behalf of all of us. So thank you for being a part of that, and also dates in January that are on your radar. So we have January 9th is a special meeting to consider whether or not to advance to a public election. January the 12th is a meeting that was set for quite a while ago as a work session with the city of Baldwin. Their strategic plan, again, is they've been kind of on a similar timeline as we are. And we felt like there might be some opportunities where goals may overlap that we could potentially work together. So we're going to have a joint work session between the city of Baldwin and the school board, which we've never done before. So kind of a nice leadership opportunity. We're also going to take that, January is School Board Appreciation Month, and so we're going to use that work session as not a way to about us, but to also take stock of the shoulders that we stand upon. And so if you have people in your life that you're still friends with who have served on either school board or city council in the past, it's all about recognizing anyone who's served along the way. Because we had to be where we were to be where we are. So we're going to use the opportunity on the 12th to celebrate community service in many forms, which we thought that would be a nice way to start a fresh calendar year on a good note. And whatever leadership initiatives we can accomplish by that, we'll seek to do. And then our regular meeting is, according to our resolution, when we pass that once a year, that's on January 17th. Which is a Tuesday, and not the regular Monday, the 16th, because that's MLK Day. So I want to make sure that was on everybody's radar. There is a basketball game that night. Had I been looking ahead, I would have wanted another night too, to be honest, because we did that one year, and then I forgot about it this year. But I also don't have a senior this year, so I'm okay with that. But I don't know. I know we don't want to make it a practice on our monthly meeting dates to have a lot of change in that, but I did want to bring that to everyone's attention in case the 17th wasn't on your radar or created some kind of problem in whatever capacity. And if everybody's okay with doing it on the 17th or not, this is the time to talk about it. We did move our regularly scheduled meeting in August. Now, we did that with a lot of notice. And the reason why we did that is because we did not realize that that particular third Monday was also back to school night everywhere. The amount of chaos that would have involved just stresses me out thinking about it. So we did make a move, I think, from that Monday to, it was either, I can't remember if it was a week later, if it was a Wednesday, I don't know. But I did want to bring that to your attention because the 17th is not a Monday. And those are the 3 dates for January. So while we're being appreciated, we're gonna work extra in January.
I like that. We're just gonna be together a lot. On the 9th and the 12th for times, those are typical 6:30 to whenever.
I think the 12th.
I think the 12th is at 7 o'clock.
The 12th is at 7. Okay. Thank you, Megan.
But the 9th will be at 6:30.
Hey Kelly, can I ask you a question? Both of those special meetings in this room with this format?
Well, we had talked about, no, the special meeting on the 9th can be in this room. Because it's a single agenda item type of meeting. The one on the 12th should be, we had talked about it being in the PAC, just because of the numbers of people.
Okay.
So,
What day is the PAC? I'll put it on the calendar.
12.
12, okay. Thank you.
7.
does the 17th work for everybody?
No.
No, because basketball, well, yeah, we have basketball that night, but. If nobody else has like a huge reason for not needing it, I mean, I'll be here, but I'm telling you, if I had a senior, I wouldn't be here. So cheer extra for me. And let's keep our eye on that for next year, because the one year we did it, we didn't have it on that MLK week. It was the same thing. We did it on a different night. Now, we can't do it on MLK Day because that's a day off for staff and everything.
So next month, we look at all of them again and
right.
Typically go, so I've already got that resolution started and
Sweet.
we're looking at a Tuesday again.
So let's make it a Wednesday.
A Wednesday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then it just avoid, because there'll be no basketball game on a Wednesday.
Perfect.
You're referencing February 20th.
I'm sorry, we're talking about, so January, we revisit we re-elect presidents and it's the organizational meeting. And so we set all of the board meetings for the next entire year through January because then that's when we do it again. So
gotcha.
Next month, you guys will be setting the dates for the board meetings, February through January.
Of 24.
Yes.
January 24.
Yeah.
We would be looking at having it on a Wednesday instead of the Tuesday following Martin Luther King Day.
Yeah.
Kelly, you can rest easy. That game was the one I added in September, so there wasn't even on the calendar.
Well, I didn't think so. You know, that's okay.
That was my fault.
No, it's okay. We'll do the work we need to do, but also like zero issue when a board member needs to, you know, people need to miss
And
sometimes,
there
and
is
that's
May.
fine.
May we try to avoid graduation time, and Phil's got an 8th grader, Mark's got an 8th grader. So we've got, the May meeting would be on Tuesday, the 16th of May, as 8th grade promotion is on May 15th. I mean, we'll talk about that all.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Anyways, but.
Yeah.
February 1st, no school, we still did that on Monday.
But that would be May.
What, the date for February hasn't been set yet. That's why
Our regular board meeting.
our regular board meeting for February hasn't been, because we have to vote on that in January.
It's part of the
You'll decide on
organizational piece in January that you'll vote on.
Oh, gotcha.
You see what I'm saying?
But will that likely move because it's on a day with no school?
I'm
Last year we didn't. Last year, everybody said they would be fine coming in on a day without school. So we had it on regular Monday.
Okay. So we'll just continue to be very methodical as you're preparing that. What makes the regular monthly meetings more of a hassle to change is because it is a board-adopted annual resolution that sets those. So we certainly don't want to be flippant about changing those. Special meetings, we can schedule whatever, but it creates, and if we don't have coverage, we'll let it roll this way this time. No worries, but we'll fix it for the next year. Okay, cool. I'm going to say one more thing that's been weighing on me the whole meeting. I had kind of a delayed reaction to it, I'm going to be honest, but I won't feel good about myself if I don't. And it's miscellaneous and it's board member input. I do want to address a point of order. There was something that was said about a board member during public comment about not being properly elected. And I'm not going to let that fly. The insinuation that there was something not credible or democratic about that. And it doesn't matter who it is. It's about standing up for process and the people who are serving. When a board member resigns, just so we're working with the facts, when a board member resigns, there is not a special election for board service. There is an appointment process. And the people who appoint a new board member have all been elected at some point. We were very lucky. Last January, we had, was it 5 or was it 6? I think it was 6 because I made a joke about we could sub out everybody. I think, yeah. And so it was a fully democratic legal procedure. And just because, regardless of whether someone is elected or appointed, it doesn't take away from the work or service that they do. And
I just wouldn't have been able to go home tonight without saying that. All right, moving on, superintendent's report, safety and security, Mr. Dodge.
Before I get to that, I want to circle back to something that kind of sets the tone for the next 3 items for the night. I've been thinking about this for a long time. This is something that's been weighing on me, and I want to make sure that this is out there. When I planned the back to school convocation piece and trying to get to share with the staff a little bit about myself, I shared a little bit about who I am as a person, as a father, as a parent, as just taking myself, or not taking myself seriously, but taking what I do seriously. I took care of that in April when I introduced myself to all the staff. And I used convocation as an opportunity to share who I am as an education leader, as I am as just a teacher in that sense. And so in a lighthearted effort, I utilized professional wrestling catchphrases as kind of the inspiration for it. And so I titled that message More Than a Catchphrase. These are statements, beliefs that I have, that I try to live by, I lead by. And as we're coming through that halfway point of the school year, and some of the things that we've encountered over the course of the first several months, we've had some great successes, some great highlights, some great things, but we've also been through some difficult times. But I wanted to circle back to this because I've tried to model and live after what I promised our staff, that this is who I am as a leader. And I started off with, and I'm not going to go through all of the rationale behind all of these, but I'll do it a little bit. The first catchphrase I gave was, I had a leader that said, when you're going into a new position, just move a plan. You come in, take that opportunity to see how operations work, see how the district functions, get to know the culture, get to know the people. Whatever changes you make, do it in a subtle way. Just make sure that plant isn't a tree. And so that's kind of been that mindset. I've tried to come in, take an opportunity to get to know how each of our buildings operate, each of our departments operate, and then strategically, when it's appropriate, make some adjustments. And I've tried to do that. I'm not going to come in and micromanage the work that our administrators do in terms of how they schedule their buildings, discipline their students. But when an opportunity comes to reflect and look at things from a different paradigm, I want to make sure that that's there. Likewise, I open myself up to that same opportunity. Someone can change my mind, change my position through conversation. And so that's where that was coming from. I had a counselor, moving on to my second statement, a counselor back in McLaughlin when I was there. He said, rule number one, it's not about me. And he lived that. The work that we do is never about me. It's never about the adults. It's about the kids that we serve. It's about what they have, their goals, their dreams, their needs. And so when we're going through the decisions that we make, we have to understand it's not about what's convenient. It's not about what makes us look good. It's about what our kids need. Sometimes that means you have to sacrifice. Sometimes that means you have to acknowledge a change is needed. Sometimes you have to take an opportunity to reflect and grow and make a decision that takes us to improvement. The next phrase is ride for the brand. Recognize that everything we do, our eyes are we have eyes on us. We're under a microscope. We have to reflect that. And so it's never about that personal gain. It's about the district. It's about making sure that what we do, it leaves a legacy for the district, in the sense that what we want to do is show improvement and show benefits for students. From an instruction side of things, I believe in return on instruction. I believe everything we do should be for a purpose and methodical. When we're talking about what we're doing with kids, there needs to be some sort of check for understanding, check for learning, whether that's a ticket out the door or bell work. It's that idea of constantly reflecting, is what I'm intending these students to learn and be able to do is connecting. And I believe in that. I don't believe you assign homework for the sake of signing homework because that's tradition, or that's what we've always done. That the work that we do needs to match what it is we're trying to get our students to learn and master. This next statement here came from a high school football coach. He was king of these types of catchphrases, but he said, good, better, best. Never let it rest until your good is better and your better is best. And the idea behind that is we need to celebrate those opportunities where we're successful. We also need to not be complacent. We always need to look at what we're doing strategically to make sure that we're making those constant improvements. We can't just simply say we're good enough. And then that leads to what a learning coach told me back at Riverview when I was the elementary principal there. She said, her mindset in terms of professional learning communities, in terms of always analyzing what we're doing. We are simply not called to be good. We're called to be great. We can't look at this data and be okay with the idea that we're, things look good. We have to constantly look at what we can do to get us to a great place, because our kids deserve that. This is one, it's not a good one, but I'll take credit for making it up. I've never accused myself of being perfect. Everybody is human. We all make mistakes, but we have to grow from there. It's being accountable and acknowledging that you've made a mistake, but it's also about understanding that I know I'm not perfect, and I don't expect everybody else to be perfect as well. I am a trainer. I've been trained in Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. In that training, we talk about the most effective habit is this next catchphrase: it's sharpen the saw. If you don't sharpen the saw, if you don't take care of yourself, you don't take care of your mind, body, spirit, soul, then all of the other underlying habits that you use for interdependence, independence, they'll tend to fall apart. And so you've got to take care of yourself. You've got to make sure that you're taking care of your family and know that that's okay. The next one is something that is important because it speaks to the systemic work that we have been working on this year. We're not going to be we will be a school district, not a district of schools. Everything that's done in each building has a collateral impact on another. We need to make sure that the systems of support we're providing it for students, that mindset follows from building to building to building, so that when a child graduates to the next building, the support is there. It may not look the exact same because the structure of the building is different. The secondary level doesn't have the same course or class schedule or bell schedule that you get at the elementary level. And so those supports have to look different, but you still have that idea that we're going to support student learning. We're going to support their social emotional needs. We're going to support their behavioral needs. So we've got to make sure that mindset is across our district. The second to last phrase there, I'm a huge fan of the work of Simon Sinek and his note, what's your why? You start with why. The how and the what will come, but if you don't know your why, you're not working towards a specific purpose. And then from that, I will say there's a great video on YouTube. If you have about 4 minutes to go watch it, I think you should. It's Michael Jr. Know Your Why, and it talks about the key message out of it is when you know your why, your what becomes more meaningful because you're walking towards purpose. And that's that mindset. So what we've talked about this year when we're talking about changes, when we're talking about what we're doing, constantly using that, well, what's the why? Why are we doing this? And if we don't know what that why is, we need to keep looking into that before we make an investment. The last piece that I spoke about was the hashtag of Baldwin Bill. That's a huge, that's big with me, and I don't mean to be cliche behind it. That is so important. It was blown away. You never ask a question with a class that you don't already know the answer to. But I broke that rule, and I asked this of the audience there at convocation. I said, all right, if you're an alum of Baldwin, please stand up. And I was expecting to see 5 or 6 stand up. And there's probably 20 or 30 stood up. And that blew me away. And it's that idea. Baldwin Bill talks about, these are individuals that they went through our school system. They were in our community. They were successful, and these individuals, they came back and they wanted to make an impact, and they did so at some of the most meaningful citizens we have, and that's our kids. And it's cool to see that. Not only that, but we've got kids that are leaving our communities and going out and making impacts outside our community, and that part is big. So that key piece of Baldwin Bill was kind of how we closed it out. And I say that because of this. This isn't, to me, a business. I don't take what I do as just business. To me, this is personal. Everything that's involved with this aspect that I do is personal. I take it personal. I take it personal when I go into the buildings and I work with kids who are struggling with the math concept, and I am scrambling on my feet trying to remember algebra, only to be a poor tutor in that sense. But it's that passion of wanting to be able to help those kids. It's personal for me when I walk into an elementary classroom and I see the gingerbread houses that they're making, and they're doing so in a way to reflect what our community looks like. I take it personal when I go to the junior high and I'm watching and I'm watching kids do a mock debate over an issue, and they're learning the idea behind studying a topic, studying a position, and speaking towards that position. Those are life skills. To me, that's personal. And when that day comes where I become okay with the idea that it's just business, is the time for me to find something else. And so what we've got here, where we are in 5 months into this, I've absolutely loved my time here, and I absolutely love the staff and the kids. And this job will always be personal for me. And so that is where I'm excited about the next few topics tonight to talk to you about some things that reflect some of the personal side of what's going on. And so what I'll do is I'll start with safety and security. The topic of safety and security has been something that we talked about as an admin team dating back to June when we had our summer admin summit. We had some conversations about what do we need to improve our safety and security practices. And some of the things that came out of that led to some great conversations. As you'll recall, the Baldwin school report came out shortly after that, or shortly before that, and they were talking about one of the big flaws that they found in that situation was door security, door access. And so that led the discussion of what can we do to improve making sure our doors stay closed, that we only have students coming through secure entrances. And so with that, Kay did a great job of securing a grant to secure $25,000 to help offset the cost to a district where we could outfit all of our doors that are not considered secure entrance in terms of our main doors. And I'm going to get this number wrong. Kay knows the exact number. Kay, how many doors do we buy sensors? Are we looking to buy sensors for?
100-ish.
100. And 100-ish. And these are sensors that the door gets propped open, that can be set up on a timer. And if this is a door that we've got deliveries that need to come through, that only certain people have the ability to offset that alarm so that those deliveries can be made. Any other door, as soon as it gets open, there's a buzzer that goes off. We can't let convenience override safety, and part of that is the number of 100 doors that they'll be looking at. So we've got a couple of those sensors in already, and Mike and his crew are working with Kay to get those installed to see what's the best way to go about it. Hopefully we can get those tackled ourselves and save us some installation costs there. The next piece to this is something I think that was in the works, but it dates back maybe to 2012 or 13, and that's phones in our classrooms, phones in our buildings. We have almost every instructional classroom, and I say almost because there's a few spaces where we've got phones in an office, like the gym, the phone is in the office. We've got special education teachers where their office space that they share, there's phone access there. We've got phones in the classroom. That's a security aspect because it gives direct access to outside lines if necessary. And if you'll recall, this summer, Kay started that process of purchasing 194 phones, I believe, that got installed across our district. And that's a great feature. And there's some capabilities that these phones have that we are just scratching the surface on. I have the ability to do all calls to all buildings from my office. Building principals have the ability to do some all-call features as well as some, and I'm going to get this wrong, okay, so correct me here. They have some abilities to do some lockdown notifications, correct, through the phones?
Yes, you can do a intercom notification for a lockdown
from any phone. These are things that, again, these are new phones. We've had them for a couple of months. We're still learning about the access to that. Let's see here. Last summer, I went to the Green Bush Superintendent Summit, and I started this conversation with the school board, communicating the idea of trying to secure or to access our crisis responses as quick as possible. It's one of the most important things. In the identification of a crisis, for you to be able to identify a crisis team, whether that's a fight, an illness, a teacher or a staff member falls, being able to get a crisis response immediately and as quickly as possible is important. So Centegix is one of the companies that's out there that they have a clicker button that you press it 3 times, it triggers a crisis response. and then there's some additional clicks can actually create a full-fledged shutdown. Every staff member could be outfitted with a badge that could do that. Every staff member. There's another brand, Intrado, that they have a similar product, but it has some different capabilities and different functionalities that also tie into some software. I mean, so it can do some really amazing things. But it has that ability for every staff members, bus drivers, custodians, cooks, teachers, paras, to be able to trigger a lockdown immediately from a button on their badge that they would all carry with them. So that's an important piece there. Back in the summer, we talked about communication with administration. It's highly important. Our buildings they're decent size, but they are signal dead spots in each of the buildings where using your cell phone, number one, you may not get service, and number two, trying to navigate an app when your adrenaline's running and trying to get that communication and get access to multiple people, it's not easy. The idea of having a radio so you can communicate and make a call and reach people, that's highly important. Kay's done a great job of researching what options are out there. You got the standard Motorola kind where it just attaches to the same radio tower that a transportation on a bus has. But there's also a system out there that utilizes LTE and Wi-Fi. So it's the ability to have a radio in hand that we could have communication with the crisis team anywhere in a building, connecting it to Wi-Fi. There would be no dead spots, or even outside our building, or even outside of the Baldwin. These are great tools to have. We could outfit teachers with them so that you have the ability to have that emergency notification, as well as we could just look at targeted individuals, your crisis responders, to have them. It's another great tool. On December 2nd, one of the worst days I think that you could have, what was available or what happened. And I have to say, the responses that took place, the timing of this, had we had access to these features, I think things would have looked a little bit different that day. But I'll tell you, one of the things that I applaud the high school for doing is when you run a crisis drill, you usually do it within a controlled manner. You do it during the school day, you do it when you know where everyone is, and be ready for it, have access to your stuff. They did this on the fly before staff were able to report for duty because of the timing of when things happened. And by the time they triggered the lockdown, the time the situation had been resolved, talking about 7 minutes. It was 7 minutes that happened that they did. They operated it. They did so without communication tools to be able to interact with each other quickly and easily. And they did so without those crisis badges. Things could have operated a lot more quicker if we had some of these installed, because the timing of which it took place to get that crisis or the lockdown occurred, there was some gaps there. So these functions, these conversations that we've had all year, they're taking us to the right spot. The reality to this, though, these all cost dollars. And I will say we've had to put a lot of these discussions on hold for now as we wait to see what's happening with the voter findings. These things might have to occur next year. Hopefully they can occur this year. We can get some things going here. But I will tell you that the passion behind the research that we've done and the efforts that have been there have been outstanding. And I'm excited to see where we can go here. I will also applaud our administrative team, because it would have been easy that day to say, you know what, let's reflect on this next week. Let's sit back, let's think about it. But all of our administrators and Kay got together, and our SRO got together at 1:30 that afternoon. We started debriefing what happened, what went well, what didn't, what can we do differently. Communication was one area that we're looking to improve upon. Coming in and utilizing the communication plan that I had done previously in another district doesn't look the same here. And so feedback that I've received from a couple of people, it has changed how those situations, or how midday emergency type stuff, high level or low level, those discussions were had, and the great power outage of December 2022 we tried to implement some of those changes now by utilizing the text feature of, putting that message in text. In my prior district, you had 140 characters that you could submit a text to, so that was very limited use in that sense. But here, Kay's got us set up with a really good amount of text characters that can be used, and I've learned that now, so that change is occurring. The other thing that has been changing is looking back at the timing of what we do. Prior to the situation, we have a teacher that is here 7:15, ready to help students with work, with their coursework, and the kids know that. So the building was open for students to be able to come and get help. Now we've changed our practices that if you're coming before 7:30, you got to come in through the main office. You got to buzz in, you got to check in, you go there. The front doors won't open. The front doors will be the only doors open at 7:30, where we have both of our administrators there, bright, shiny smiles, ready to greet kids as they come in. With that, I've also worked with Nate to look at what would it cost to provide some extra duty pay for arrival supervision. Where a contract is written, negotiated agreement is written, when the teachers report for duty, it's not at the same time that we need to have the doors open. So we want to make sure that we have ability to pay staff that extra duty to get there 20 minutes early so that we can provide supervision. Nate ran the figures. We're looking at one position to provide supervision each school day would be a cost of $500. So, we can look at providing 3 or 4 supervision positions to be shared up at each building, whether that's one person doing all 5 days a week, if that's what they want, or, we're splitting it up. I got Mondays, you got Tuesdays, et cetera. But it's that ability to make sure that we have that supervision. And that supervision, the safety and security side of that is not just, looking at who's in the building, but it's making sure that we have eyes in the locations that are there. We have students that meet in the cafeteria. We have students that are going down into the hallways to class. It's not just about knowing who's in the building, but it's also about greeting kids, having a conversation with them. There's studies out there that show there are some kids that if you were to do a dot poll, there may be kids in our buildings that may not have a meaningful interaction with an adult. And, if you think about this, you can make sure that you have an adult on staff greeting kids and having those interactions. I think our staff does a great job of making sure our students are having those meaningful interactions. This is just one more opportunity to start someone's day off on a positive note. Whether it's, are you having a good day or a great day, or all the way to what can I help you with? It's just a great opportunity there. So that's where we are with the security and safety items. We've got some work already being done. We've also got some work that we want to do. We're just kind of in a holding pattern. So that's the safety and security side. Any questions there? All right.
Just to confirm, this stuff isn't free?
What's that? No, it is not free.
I was checking.
They're costs, and to that point, part of the challenge is we've reduced our capital outlay a little bit as a result, and a lot of these functions would come out of a capital outlay. And so, to the point of what are we doing strategically, this all goes into that conversation that will start this next semester of how are we going to strategically provide these improvements across the district, both from a physical plan as well as safety and security. That's another feature to it. Let's see. I want to move here. So the pathways. I will say the results that I've shared with you, I learned coming in tonight that we've got one more group of students that still has to complete that poll. And I don't want to do anything that might interfere with someone's responses as they take that poll tomorrow. So once that's there, then once they are able to do that, we'll make sure they get some updated findings there. But what I've got here in the board packet there, this is the raw data. It has not been filtered or sorted out. So as you're going through looking at the responses there, when you get into the sub areas of the different pathways that are there, those sub areas, 1 would be very little interest to 5 being a great deal of interest. I will tell you that up to this point, we have had a great turnout in terms of the response. Right now, we've got 505 responses, and this is 6th through 11th grade. So as you're looking at some of this information here, it's exciting to see where the students' interests are. The cool part about this is through the collaboration with the junior high and the high school, with Derek and Brant and Kelly and Bench and Carly, Ashley, and Reggie. They're looking at, what are we currently doing, and how our students are responding there. But what are our students interested in that we're not doing, and what could that look like? And it's like we heard from a student today that spoke on of a career field that there's some high level interest in. These career and technical education pathways are I said it in the communication that went out to families. To me, it's vital. It's very important. Not every kid is destined for a 4-year institution out of high school. I graduated high school at a time in '96 where it was, what are you doing? Well, I'm going to college. And what do you want to do? Well, I'm going to get my degree. And so that culture, that mindset's not there. We've got students that career technical education pathways, they may already know what they want to do. That passion may already be there. And they know it. So we can have them graduate high school with some industry recognized certifications. We can give them some prerequisite information. So if they go to a tech school, they go to a trade school, or they go to be an apprenticeship, they've got some foundation to start off in a successful way. If they're a student that they know they want to go to college and they need to take a gap year, the CTE pathway could give them an opportunity to start making some decent wages out of high school so they can save some money to go to college when they find out what it is they want to do. These pathways also lend themselves to those 4-year degrees that are there. So it's really cool to see where our students are. Once we get all of that data back, we'll visit some more and we'll look at how we see this panning out. In terms of space, that's a question that I've had. Mr. Bland and I went through his building the other day, and we're looking at, all right, here's some different spaces. What could we do here? We've got some clarification from the state in terms of does the location of the course impact high school credit? And the feedback that we got from the state was that it does not. We can have a course housed out of the junior high and still be able to offer high school credit for it. So with that, there may be an opportunity when you're growing the program, if it's something that hasn't been offered before, we may have some high school students that need to come back and take that introduction level course in a junior high, and they would still be able to get high school credit, just like we're able to have our junior high kids go to high school and get credit there. So, Derek, did I misspeak in terms of that?
No, that sounds like what you're talking about.
Okay.
You're going to be able to break this survey data down, right?
My plan is to do just that. This is straight out the gate there. My plan over the next month or so is to get it into a Google spreadsheet form so that we can start getting that information in that manner.
I just want to say I really appreciate everybody taking the time to solicit this information directly from the students. So thank you for the leadership on that, and then also at the building level, implementing that, especially this time of year. There's no shortage of things to do, but it is so important. Relating it back to another topic, the last time we did a bond, we got the primary center and the performing arts center. And it's always the easiest, no, it's not the right time. Nothing's ever the right time and all of that. So you can go round and round with that. But I know when you have facilities, it creates opportunities for programming. I worked with a kid just this year who just kind of fell into, I just want to be around my friends in the musical, and is now a kid because we had the facility of the PAC, because we have a soundboard, because we have lights. It's not like doing a play in the school gym where you spot somebody with like having all that equipment that's professional grade, and the educational opportunity that goes along with that, with training, learning how to do all those things in a proper stage management role. This is now a high school kid that wants to pursue that in college, and musical stuff wasn't even on this kid's radar. Like I said, he just kind of like stumbled in because, hey, some of my homies are there, so I guess I'll do it, whatever. And now this is a person who's on a career path because of just the amazing opportunities that having a professional facility provides. So, when the data guides us in our decision-making, it's so helpful in big picture things, not just in a little silo way, but what does that say about the big picture? Because when you have facilities, it creates educational opportunities and possible career pathways, which is the whole point. So that's really exciting, but you don't want to do that in a vacuum or just sort of guessing. So thank you guys for the work on that. Really, I'm excited to see how it breaks down further, but I like having the snapshot now. So thank you for sharing, even though it wasn't quite done.
I will say the exciting piece of this is there's a community connections aspect here. There are several pathways here that we can get some partnerships, some mentoring, some collaboration with the community, whether that's future internships, whether that's future local career fairs so that we can get our students working in these roles, or if that's just the idea of a career field, wanting to be a part of the education that goes into this. This is exciting, and so I would say the idea behind this, and I don't mean this to sound cliche, I mean it is a true belief of mine. We need to normalize the idea that career and technical education pathways are really available and really should be considered by all students, not just I remember when I was in high school, it was for a targeted group of students. It's not that way anymore. We have to normalize the access to career and tech ed. All right, that leads into the last piece, the 3-year staffing plan. And this is just more of an opportunity to have some dialogue. I've sent some information on this. The idea behind this is we take, for example, this survey will help provide feedback into some decision making. Our operation team has been given an opportunity to think about, collaborate with their departments, meet with their building leadership teams, and really think and process through what are some of our staffing needs that we've got over a 3-year period. First year would be, what is it we need to prioritize looking at this year? These aren't positions that, we may not be able to hire all of them this year, but they can be priority hires. There may be other positions that we have to hire because different needs come up, but at least we've got some targeted decision making for some needs that occurred this year. Other positions might be, hey, we want to put these on the radar because they may be important next year. Those might be positions that are tied to ESSER funds, and so we need to start thinking now, how do we need to absorb them into the general fund the next year? They may be, we got a retirement that's coming up. I know that so-and-so's, they've been talking about it, so let's just put that on the radar. Year 3 and beyond is that, right, it's not necessary, it's not a necessary need now, it's not a necessary need in the coming years, but if we want to continue the growth of a program, or if we want to see continuous improvement occur, let's have that on the radar there. And so each year about this time, we'll go through and we'll adjust that. As those needs that were year 2 next year would fall into that year 1. Are they still a year 1, or do we need to move those to a year 2? And we may have some new 3+ positions that have been added to the radar. So that process will continuously evolve. Some examples of some of these ideas. We've talked about, we've got social workers that work in our schools do a phenomenal job, and they do a great job of providing access to resources and work with students in one-on-one type of sessions. But we also have at the elementary need, there's a need growing for an elementary counselor, provide some character education, to provide some classroom instruction in that sense, to work with the school improvement process and be part of a care team. That's one example that could be on something like this. It could be, we've talked about the ESSER positions that are there. We've got some of the ESSER positions. We've got, do we want to look at reshaping that and splitting it up to a ELA specialist and a math specialist? There are different opportunities that we can leverage through these conversations. There are some classified positions that might be on there. We've got a technology director that does a phenomenal job, but there are times where she's neck deep in data, and that's what she's doing. And so it's hard for her to lead that department. So do we need to look at someone to take on some of the data specialist side of things? We've got a school that has one secretary, and they're doing a great job, but one secretary is proving to not be enough. So what can we do to make sure that we provide that office support staff so that we're able to provide the needs and services from that end of things that's necessary? So those are all conversations. Our operations team will take those positions. We'll look through them, we'll dig through them, we'll prioritize the list that we'd like to recommend. And then that will come to you for feedback, and we can make some adjustments based on the vision and direction or some of the guidance that we might have here. And then that would help lead us into the hiring season that would come in to place March, April, May as we move forward. So that's how that process will work. Do you have any questions about that?
When would you anticipate that coming back after you've had time to work with it more?
It's my hope to have a draft for the board in our January meeting to be able to look at, because we're going through the process next month of taking through, and we'll prioritize next month. It's my hope.
Okay, well,
I don't want to be too ambitious.
Yeah.
But I'd like to be able to do that so that by February.
By February, it might be more realistic.
I'm good with February. I think the administrators would be good with February.
Because we also have extra meetings in January, but okay.
So.
Thank you.
Question real quick about the county community pathways and the staffing process. I'm assuming that the wider we go in the course offerings for like the high school, for instance, that we end up freeing up some capacity for like, maybe we have fewer sections of a particular class and that teacher can then spill over into some of the pathways work as well. I don't know how it really works.
And Brandon is going to probably be able to better speak to this. With the pathways that you have there's some crossover. For example, health sciences, there's some opportunity for some of those. I can't remember the pathway exactly, specific pathway, but there are some courses that were offered within science that would help fit that CTE requirement. So there would be some opportunity to leverage that as well.
So like if we're adding a nursing pathway, just to give an example, that could largely be taught by credentialed math teachers and science teachers, and it's not necessarily bringing in a whole new staffing program.
Well, for the nursing one, you would want to have a license. But I know what you're saying. The sciences is the ag sciences would be one that you could probably leverage some more cross content pieces there for some of those supplemental pieces. But there's an opportunity to get some of that. You've got the law enforcement. There's some social studies components that are there. So.
Ag sciences, that's the one I know most about. That's the one you can do probably the most obvious crossover with, because underneath that you have food science, meats, all that. I mean, that can cross over with your culinary. I mean, there's ways of staffing. I know that because that is such a broad area in terms of agribusiness. So that is probably an easier example for me to conceptualize than the nursing thing, because that's credentialed in a different way. Does that help at all?
Yeah.
It's everything if we're adding pathways, which it sounds like we've got data support that we should, which we've been adding there, that there's going to be some current staff members who can step forward in part to teach you some of those courses, depending on what we select.
Yeah, depending on what we select.
And in the sequence which we go into.
There's also, as our speaker tonight pointed out, there's also, there may be a pathway that we want to add. There may be another district that's offering it, that we could partner with them. And maybe we're offering something that they're not offering, and we can then do some reciprocal work in that sense. So it provides some open door opportunities.
Anybody else? Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Dodge. I move we enter into executive session with Mr. Dodge, Principal Bland, Assistant Principal Curry, to discuss personnel. I said everybody right? Yeah. Pursuant to the justification under coma for non-elected personnel discussion. And the open meeting will resume at 9:53. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.